It is now 6:30 p.m. and I'd like to call to order the October 21st, 2019 study session of the Board of Trustees of the Aldine Independent School District. Let the minutes reflect that we have a quorum with the following members present. Everybody is here. Okay, we'll start our program in that with Dr. LaTanya Hoffman.
Good evening, Mr. President. My goal was to beat you here, and I am so proud that I did. I made a wrong turn. I was trying to get to East Aldine, and my GPS took me to Hardy, and I got scared, and so I called Shalia. I'm like, I'm going the wrong way. And I said, oh, no, there it is. So anyway.
Are we having a contest now?
Everything's a contest. Everything is a contest. But no, so thankful. Let's give it up for our HR department. I'm telling you, it was a good group of student teachers, regardless of whether they choose Aldine now or later. And a lot of them are going to choose now, and they seem authentic in their responses, and just very proud. So good job. Let's give it up for HR. We have a couple of presentations on our agendas tonight, and I'm very excited about both of them. I'm so excited that I'm getting organized. Our first is our consideration. Where are we? I'm sorry. This is it.
Take the chair.
Perfect. Our first is our consideration and approval of the annual donation to Aldine Education Foundation and Aldine Scholarship Fund. If you'll turn to page 25, it shows where historically we have been able to determine an amount to donate to the Aldine Education Foundation and the Aldine Scholarship Fund. As you all know, the AEF funds are used by qualifying Aldine students to attend any college or university or technical institute. However, the ASF funds are used for qualifying students, Aldine students to attend Lone Star College system. For the last 6 years, the board has agreed to donate $10,000 to each part of the organization, which is a total of $20,000. The district uses these funds received from vending machine sales for this donation. At this meeting, we just want to discuss your preference, and then we want to continue it. As a reminder, this topic is discussed each year in case funds do not allow the $20,000 donation. Just know that we've done it historically, and it's our recommendation that we continue it. We've talked with Dr. Alfred Stevens, and the funds are available. Okay. Any questions, concerns?
Board?
No. Continuation of what?
Continuation? Good deal. Good deal. We have a couple of other presentations tonight as well. We have our Board of Trustees training hours. If you go to page 300, you will see those, and that's required for the board to do as well. And
you go ahead and read those out?
Yes, sir, Mr. President.
Okay. So effective September the 1st, 2007, House Bill 2563 required that the minutes of the last regular meetings of the Board of Trustees held during a calendar year to reflect whether each trustee has met the training requirements or is delinquent. There are 3 tiers of training. Tier 1, experienced board members must receive an update to the Texas Education Code after each legislative session. Tier 2, each year all members of the board and the superintendent must participate as a group in a team building session intended to enhance the team's effectiveness. Tier 3, experienced board members must receive at least 5 hours of additional continuing education, education each year related to the area of needs. All of our board members, with the exception of one, have exceeded the required board member training hours. The year for meeting continuing education requirements reported for this year starts on January the 1st. These hours are from January the 1st, 2019 through October the 11th, 2019. Patricia Bourgeois, position 1, has completed 5.5 hours. Paul Shanklin, position 2, has completed 44.75 hours. Rose Avalos, position 3, has completed 42.75 hours. Anya Sparza, position 4, has completed 43.75 hours. Steve Mead, position 5, had completed 49 hours. Kimberly Booker, position 6, had completed 36.5 hours. And Viola Garcia, position 7, has completed 69.75 hours. So that's a lot of hours. The board puts in a lot of hours.
Next, Mr. Mead, Board President distributes the framework for school board development to all board members and the superintendent, and that's on page 302.
One more page. Okay. On November the 19th, 2010, I'm sorry, something happened to my screen. It just dropped off.
Just dropped off.
There it is now.
Okay, here it
It's
is.
back on.
Gotcha.
Back on.
Mhm.
Okay, so on November the 19th, 2010, the State Board of Education adopted amendments to its rules on continuing education for board members. Announcement of credit. And since 1986, the State Board of Education rule has required the board president to make a public announcement each year of the names of those board members who have completed required continuing education, who have exceeded the required hours, and who are deficient. The rule has required this announcement to be made at the meeting in which the call for election of board members is normally scheduled. In 2007, the legislature amended a statute on training to require an announcement at the last regular meeting of the Board of Trustees during the calendar year. The amendments approved November 19, 2010 remove any reference to an announcement at the meeting for the call of election. The only announcement the board president must make is now at the last regular board meeting in the calendar year, which is a December meeting. Dissemination of the framework for government leadership. The amendments require that the board president annually distribute the framework for government leadership, also known as the framework for school board development, to all current members of the board and the superintendent. A copy of this framework for school board development is in each board member's and superintendent's packet. I think it's okay. Everybody should have a copy of that.
Yes, sir. You have an electronic copy, and we're
Okay.
going to give a hard copy.
Okay.
Exactly. Any questions on the hours or the framework for school board development?
Okay.
My next two items include information items, and then I have a couple of items for executive session. I'm excited tonight about the two presentations that are going to be here. As you all know, we were unable to travel with Chief Tasa Tasby because our district was selected to be a second cohort of Holsworth. And we're really excited about our district support specialists who are here tonight. We have Mr. Brian and Mrs. Tiffany, who are here to give you an overview because we've been talking about Holsworth. You were very much in favor of us participating in this process, and we're excited about the money that's being invested in building leadership capacity in our district. But we wanted to make sure the board didn't just see the things that we were doing, but also were deeply involved in this process and understood what was going on in our district. And so this will be the first presentation, and in the future, they're going to come back and we're going to spend more time in a board workshop. But we wanted to kind of give you an overview and an introduction of the things that are happening during our Holsworth experience. So welcome to Aldine.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Welcome back to Aldine.
Well, it's always it's really great opportunity to be here. My name is Brian Gilson. I'm a district support team lead with Holsworth.
I'm Tiffany O'Neill, the other district support person here in the district.
And we're really excited at the opportunity here to be here this evening to talk through the work we're doing to support Aldine and certainly answer any questions you all have about the partnership. And during this time, we hope to provide a little bit of context about who we are as an organization, the partnership, and the work that we're doing with Aldine this year. So a little bit of background about us. Our mission as an organization is to impact over time the quality of K-12 public education for all students in Texas. And as you may know, Holsworth was founded by Charles Butt, who of course is the CEO of HEB, and he really has a commitment to making long-term sustainable improvements to public education in the state of Texas. And that's really evident in the 5-year partnership that we make with each of our district partners. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that later. Charles actually named our organization for his mother, Mary Elizabeth Holdsworth, who was a teacher in the Hill Country in Texas. And she really inspired in him a great admiration for educators and a passion for helping all students succeed. So I think a helpful way of talking about the work we do is talking about how we approach the work. So first, as I alluded to, we really take a long view and recognize that meaningful improvement in schools doesn't happen overnight. Second, we believe that leadership isn't about superheroes and that it really takes teams and systems of leaders to make meaningful and lasting change. Third, we really aspire to build the district's capacity in leadership development and talent management over a period of time. And finally, we don't typically tell a district that they must do, A, B, C, and D, though we'll, of course, provide suggestions. We really work to partner with districts to help them identify the things that they want to take on in leadership development and talent management. And so this pyramid here sort of outlines the approach that we take with districts and our theory of action. At the bottom of the pyramid, you can see our 3 learning objectives, which are create change, grow and empower others, and develop personal leadership. And we aspire, in the middle of the pyramid, you see some of the outcomes, and we aspire for the outcomes of those learnings to be stronger systems in the districts, namely a pipeline of ready leaders or of a future bench of school leaders, and an engaged staff culture that is committed to excellence. And just as you all, we aspire for those outcomes to, of course, help lead towards excellent and equitable outcomes for all students and all dean. So to get more concrete, here's what our partnership will look like over the course of the next 5 years. So at the top, you can see our district leadership program. And as you're likely aware, several senior leaders in Aldine are participating in that program, what we call the DLP. And it's a 2-year professional learning journey where we expose our leaders to world-class leadership development and talent management organizations, and they undergo some personal leadership development as well. Beginning next year, we'll be inviting a handful of campus leaders in Aldine and their teams to participate in the Campus Leader program. And that's sort of those 4 rectangles you see in the middle there. And that program is also a 2-year professional learning experience focused on making progress on a problem of practice on their campus. And over the course of the partnership, we aim for about 50% of campuses in Aldine to participate in the Campus Leader program. And then finally, over the course of the 5 years, Aldine will receive support from the district support team, and that's the team that Tiffany and I are on. And we'll be on the ground in Aldine providing support in building systems and structures for leadership development and talent management. So a little bit of context about the districts we work with. In our first cohort, as Dr. Goffney mentioned, Aldine is in the second cohort of districts. In our first cohort, we had 7 districts, and we recently added 6 more districts, sort of working around the major urban centers in Texas. And we also work with a couple of districts in the Valley. And we're really excited to share that we'll be opening the Holdsworth Center, which is a physical center, a physical campus on Lake Austin, where we'll hold all of our sessions for our leaders. And that'll open this time next fall, which we're really excited about. So I want to talk a little bit more about what the works look like in Aldine so far. So I talked a little bit earlier about the district leadership program. So again, this is a 2-year experience with about 15 sessions. So and a handful of those sessions have already happened. So in July, Dr. Goffney and Dr. Chapa went to Singapore to learn about their innovative approach to talent management and leadership development. As you may be aware, Singapore is one of the highest performing education systems in the world and has a really innovative approach to leadership development in schools. We also think that learning from the private sector can be a valuable tool, and so last month our leaders visited H-E-B stores in San Antonio and heard from H-E-B leaders about how they approach leadership development and had some discussions about how those ideas can be transferred to education and Aldine specifically. And then finally, just on Saturday night, actually, we returned from Toronto, where we visited the Durham District School Board. They provide a really innovative example, both of leadership development and how they approach equity with students and staff. And so I also want to provide a little bit more work or context on the work that Tiffany and I are going to be doing through the district support program, which is sort of focused on those middle layers of the triangle. And for that, or of the pyramid rather, and for that, I'm going to hand it over to Tiffany.
Okay. Well, thank you for having us again here today. So in front of you, you see this visual that we affectionately call the Holsworth House. If you ask your leadership team, they've seen this, I don't know, not 100 times, but almost quite 100 times. And it really helps us solidify the way that we at Holsworth think about talent development and what are the critical facets of that. So you can see in the middle, those 4 pillars: identify, develop, place, and support. Identify is about how do we look for and find those really talented people that are already existing in our school district? How do we then develop that talent into the leaders that we want to see? How do we place and make a strategic match between that high quality talent? And then support is about, once folks are already in seat, how do we continue to help them grow and be the strongest leader they can in the seat that they have? And so those are the critical pieces that we are going to be working closely with Aldine to develop. But you can imagine that those things don't happen in isolation. At the foundation of our house, you can see district culture, which informs pretty much everything that happens in a district, leadership definition, which I'll talk a little bit more about, and then the systems that are in place in a district, like evaluation, data, incentives, and pay, and how those things work. So all of those are interconnected, but you can see in a nutshell our visual here, and we use that all the time to talk about the work that we're doing. So far, right now, we're working on 2 big initiatives. The first is the district-wide talent assessment, and the second is to work on creating a district definition of leadership. So our talent assessment is really the baseline foundation of all of the work that we're going to do over the next 5 years, because it gives us this thorough aggregate view of what's happening in talent development in the district. And we use that to benchmark our progress over time as we start modifying and changing systems. So this is a critical point in time where we're really gathering data in 3 ways. The first way that we gathered some data is with a survey, broad-based across the whole district and staff. We then get underneath those numbers with some focus groups and interviews to add a little depth and context to what we're seeing in that survey. And then we also look at some data and documents like your demographics information, your evaluation system information that is shared out with all teachers. So we do this really robust analysis that gives us both like cold hard facts and gives us then also the experiences of people to help us really fill in the places where the numbers don't tell us enough. And then our second component is an exciting foundational component, which is the definition of leadership for Aldine. You can see it down there in yellow. We call it leadership definition. And basically what that means is a codified definition of what leadership looks like the Aldine way. What do leaders in this district really need to espouse and know in order to progress and move forward in the district? And we use that as a fundamental piece of the way that our future leaders are developed, so they can understand what their competencies are now, where they need to grow and develop to move forward. And their managers can help them grow and develop because it's very clear what is needed from leaders in Aldine and what that looks like at each role. So we're in the midst of doing that work, and there'll be more to follow, but a big chunk of that is to make sure that the leadership definition is clear, concise, and accessible to everybody. Whether you're sitting on the cabinet or you're working in a classroom, you really have clarity around what leadership looks like here. A big part of that is we create some visuals to help make that move forward in the district. Here are some examples of other ways that our districts from our first cohort put together that information. And we'll keep it coming. We'll keep giving you keep you posted on how that is going as we progress through that in the district, but that work is going on right now. We're very excited about the kickoff of it. So we're here to answer any questions that you have. We're so grateful and excited to work with your team. It was such a strong team, so it's been a wonderful experience for us so far. And any questions that you have, we're happy to answer.
I don't really have any questions right now, but I know we appreciate what y'all are doing for Aldine. And we hear that through our leadership that comes back from the Singapore and what they've learned there, and also what they've learned about from the equity of the Canada system as well. So we're very appreciative of what y'all doing for our district.
Thank you. It's an honor. It's been an honor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank y'all very much. Safe travels.
Yeah, thank you.
Our next presentation, again, we probably want to leave that down. We share with you, and you've seen at the football games, Texas Children's Hospital has been all in, but we have our VP of Human Resources from Texas Children's, Mr. Jermaine Monroe, and the conversations began, seemed like a year ago, when you were the one in the room, and we had a different CEO, and we held tight, and Dr. Jaffa stayed with it, and we've come full circle. And so there are pieces that you see on the sidelines, but what's more important as we talk about social emotional learning, and as we talk about what we're going to do for the whole child, this is a wonderful opportunity for our families, all of our families at Aldine. So we're excited about this partnership. And so we wanted to come, for you all to come, and we appreciate you saying yes and conducting a presentation and answering any of our board's questions.
Absolutely. And I'll kick it off very quick in that we have our president here from our health plan, Mark Malarkey, and we have our director of community relations, Christina Gamboa, and they'll both talk about our health plan and our partnership more in detail.
Thank you so much and good evening. Part of me wants to say go Astros and throw that in a little bit as well.
Go ahead. Go ahead, do it.
Yes. I am the Executive Vice President for Texas Children's, as well as the President of Texas Children's Health Plan, and I am so pleased to be here tonight to talk with you about what we are going to be doing in our partnership with Aldine ISD. I think it's important to note that the mission of Texas Children's is to provide care for every child, regardless of their ability to pay. Our founding fathers spoke to that, and they said that they will be unwavering in that. And Mark Wallace, who has been our CEO now for 30 years, has never changed. He stays committed to that. At the same time, we are committed to ensure that those children who can have insurance get insurance. And so our commitment is to assist them to gain insurance coverage. And as a system, we really don't care what insurance they may choose. We want them to be insured. But we are a provider-based health plan. And so Texas Children's Health Plan is part of a system. We have the hospital, we have subspecialists, we have Texas Children's Pediatrics, a group of primary care providers. And so we can offer a lot of value to the members. As you heard, what Texas Children's is bringing to the table for Aldine ISD is a sports medicine program to assist your athletes. But we're here tonight to talk about Texas Children's Health Plan and to give you some background as it relates to Texas Children's Health Plan. The health plan is so proud to be part of a system that has the #3 hospital in the country as rated by U.S. News and World Report. We have the #1 specialty for heart, the #1 specialty for pulmonary. We have the #2 specialties in 2 areas, the #3 specialties in the country in 2 areas. So we definitely offer some of the highest quality care. And Texas Children's Health Plan offers a door to those locations, but also to any of the other providers that are part of our network. So I want to be able to turn over the floor to you, to our Director of Marketing, Christina Garcia Gamboa. And in transitioning that, we are going to show you a brief video that will introduce to you Texas Children's Health Plan, and then Christina will take it from there.
Texas Children's Health Plan empowers families by providing the quality health coverage they need. And we have the people, we have the structure, we have the leadership that allow us to fulfill the community necessities, to fulfill the employees' necessities.
It's an organization that serves to make a difference not only in members' lives, but families and the communities that we serve.
We have a community of people that don't know the benefits they have out there that we can offer assistance with. I go in the community and I help people apply for CHIP and Medicaid benefits.
There is a place that women and children can go to, a one-stop shop that can address most health needs.
We want to provide great care, but we know that really having an impact to the community requires going above and beyond just medical care. It includes making it a place to come for different events.
We're here to supplement the fact that families need to also have some type of get together and have fun. And it's not just having fun, but that you can be educated and stay healthy while having fun.
That's what we're here for, to make sure our members are their healthiest. and they're independent and their families are healthy and independent, and knowing what their resources are to keep that going.
The centers become more than just a clinic in our members' eyes. It's really just a place where their kids can learn, their kids can grow, and their kids can be healthy. It's all in one spot.
We're here to serve the community because we want to partner with you. We're here to make sure we serve the community as a whole.
Texas Children makes lives better for children, our families, and our communities, one day at a time, making the world a nicer place to be.
All right, thank you. Thank you for having us today. That's just a preview of what we offer at Texas Children's Health Plan. Give the Okay, we'll work it with the mouse. All right, so as you saw in the video, we offer CHIP and Medicaid benefits, right? So we want to make sure that families in the areas that we serve have access to quality and affordable health coverage. And how we bring that to the communities we serve is through our CHIP and Medicaid. So these are programs funded by the state that provide health coverage to families that are at poverty or 200% the rate of poverty. Our health plan is the largest. We are exclusively designed to serve pregnant women and children. We are the largest, and we have just a little over 420,000 members today. We have 2 locations, which you saw there. You saw some children having a Boys and Girls Club activity at a center. Those are our 2 clinics. One is located just down the road on Greens Road, off the Beltway. And we, in doing a lot of research and really wanting to understand what our families, what they go through, we knew that we needed to have clinics that were full service, everything under one roof. We know it's hard. It's hard for us to take a child and then, oh, you've got to go to the pharmacy to get your prescription, and then, oh, child needs to come back for maybe speech therapy or an audiology exam or an x-ray. So we offer all of that under one roof: pharmacy, vision, behavioral health, dentist, and we try to do it all at the same time to make this easy for our families. We also know that kids don't get sick just from 8 to 5. We know they get sick at night. We know that the parents that we serve work all kinds of hours, and they may work on the weekend, they may work during the week. So our clinics are open till 11 p.m. and they're open on the weekend with all services, and we also offer obstetrics care as well. So again, really wanting to bring that quality coverage and access to healthcare that's needed in the community. We're in 55 counties. You can see there, mostly around East Texas. We go from Houston service area down to or east to Beaumont, Jefferson County, and then up to rural East Texas, just everything just below Dallas, pretty much. All right, so our partnership with Aldine, the goal is simple. It's to make sure that the children that you serve and that we in the communities we serve have access to health coverage. We know that having a healthy students is really fundamental to their education. So we're really happy to partner and talk about that today. And we discussed with Dr. Chapa and Dr. Goffney, what are some of those challenges that these families face? So it's just the knowledge. How do you get health coverage? What are the options? The application process, it's very time consuming. It is cumbersome. Or in talking to parents, a lot of parents feel, hey, my kids are healthy, and I've got a lot on my plate. I'm worried about how I'm going to feed my family, how we're going to pay rent. And I think my children are healthy, so why go through those extra steps? And then there's, for those students that are athletes and get access to catastrophic care, sometimes there's a misunderstanding that also gives students the ability to have regular health coverage, when in fact it does not. And so the opportunity in Aldine is 86% of the student base, as you know, is economically disadvantaged. And so our missions line up directly in who we want to serve and how. And we did some research. We looked at a map. Let me ground you to the map. The red outline is the Aldine School District. The black dots are each of the schools in the Aldine School District. And that red square there is our Center for Children and Women Greens Point. Again, the clinic that's open late and on the weekends with all of the services under one roof. And we looked, we really want to make an impact. I think you're all aware, just even 2 weeks ago, the Houston Chronicle had a story about how Houston unfortunately ranks the highest in number of uninsured population. Not a statistic we were proud of, and certainly something we wanted to change. So as we looked at the data, we looked at Aldine, and you can see there the darker the purple, the more uninsured families that we have. So our targets definitely roll up. There's definitely an opportunity to come in and help these families make sure that they have access to health coverage. All right, and so I told you a little bit earlier, I'm not going to go into detail what the application journey is, but it is about 20 pages of paperwork that must be filled out along with many documents that get uploaded. It could take up to, actually, if you count through all of this, it's about up to 100 days to go through the entire process. So we have application assistance specialists on hand. We actually came out to your in-service day on October 11th. And spoke to the nurses and the counselors and gave them a brief idea of what it is to apply for health coverage. And that's why we know it's important. We know that this is one of the barriers. So we've got a team and a lot of educational material and resources to help overcome some of this barriers. Something unique about Texas Children's Health Plan. So there are 5 health plans in this area that the students can take advantage of. And as Mark said, at the end of the day, our interest is to make sure that children have access to health coverage. But in our case, again, understanding our families and the barriers and what they go through, we've designed a unique reward program. It's called our Healthy Rewards program, where we offer our families incentives to make sure that they're getting their well child checks. For example, you can get $25 every time you go through a well child check. If you are pregnant, we'll give you meals. We know that it's important to have access to healthy meals throughout your pregnancy, and other fun activities like you saw in the video, access to Dynamo clinics, if the kids like sports and soccer, movie nights, and some other fun things just to keep those families top of mind. So our plan with Aldine, again, as I mentioned, we were out here, we presented at SHAC, we were at the in-service day and really enjoyed talking to everybody, got some great feedback, but it really is to provide that health coverage that's so needed that we saw in the maps. We've made some educational materials that we distributed last week, and we're going to get more out to the counselors and nurses that really just help families understand the basics of how to, as long as making my team available to help with that application process. We will work with the district to have events specific to where we get an entire team out that can help families come in. The process does take 45 minutes, so we're working with the district to make sure that we've got all the logistics planned for that. We'd like to participate in health fairs. We've done a parent night and an open house, and then we've already started the train the trainer sessions. So we're really excited to be a part of Aldine and to help our students get access to health coverage. Do we have any questions about our partnership that we can answer?
Board members, questions?
No, we just appreciate it. We appreciate having you. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have one question. I know
Yes.
you said one location was Greens Road and the Beltway.
Yes.
Where's the other location?
It's in Southwest Houston on Bissonnet off 59. Okay, well, thank you for your time.
We'd like to thank you for joining us today. And I know that we have been, Dr. Goffney and I began our conversations probably over a year ago. And we thought that we were not going to see this day actually come, right? But we are very thankful that you were able to help us see this through. And we are thankful for all of the support you're giving our families. And we continue for a long future ahead of us.
Yeah,
whatever we can do to work together.
Jermaine, as
It's
we
a
said,
partnership.
it's the benefit of a
Yes.
system. When you have an executive over human resources that can connect a school district and our health plan together, really you see the systemness in action. And as we bring primary care providers and specialists in the hospital to the students, as well as those that may be pregnant women and moms here, I think they're really going to get a fantastic service offering. So we're really looking forward to continuing our work with you.
And just because I like being first and only, and this is one of the first partnerships of this magnitude. They have other partnerships with others for Friday nights, but as far as helping our children and families to access quality health care, this is the first partnership of this magnitude. And so we are so thankful and excited about the future. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr.
Yes.
And we will say for you, go Stros.
Yeah.
And Cougars.
And Cougars, yeah. Go Cougars.
Thank you.
Go Texans, okay?
And Mr. Mead, that concludes all of my consent, action, board committee reports, and informational items, and I have a couple items for executive session.
Okay, then with that, we will go with Dr. Selena Chapa on operations.
President Mead, Dr. Goffney, and members of the board, my agenda begins on page 29. And I will begin with a standard report from Child Nutrition, and that includes the financial report and participation report. Are there any questions regarding those two documents? If there are no questions, I'd like to proceed with an update on the middle school competition fields. And that is located on page 33. As a reminder, with the 12 middle schools that we have been experiencing challenges of scheduling the competitions. And last month, we did share with the board that we had two potential sites that we were exploring for competition sites, and that was Lewis Middle School and possibly Shotwell Middle School. Did want to share with you, at the time, we were exploring those two sites specifically because they had the square footage and the accessibility of multiple schools because of their location. We most recently began the conversations about considering Davis High School. And we thought that would be a viable option for multiple reasons. Currently, Davis Senior High School has it's a competition site for, they have softball, baseball, tennis, and swim. And if we would add football, soccer, and track, then it would be a complete complex. The advantage of that would be that it already has parking. Our middle school students would be able to see the high school that they could potentially be going to. It eliminates their interest in possibly seeking, an interest to go to another high school. There's also, it would attract possibly other individuals for, that may want to come into our setting. And so we just thought that as a whole, having a complex that would be a complete complex that would be able to service all of it, we thought may be a better option. And so just wanted to let you know that all three sites are still under consideration, but that is another one that we're still exploring to see what may work better for the district as a whole.
When do you think we'll get the numbers?
What do you mean?
Fiscal.
The numbers. We have been looking at numbers and what it could be with the potential cost. And I know having conversations with Dr. Alfred Stevens, it could be, I know that until, we won't know the final numbers until it goes out to bid, but I know that there are some preliminary numbers that have been discussed. Mm-hmm. No. Yeah, from yeah. No, it's not up there yet. Yes. Mm-hmm. Uh-huh. Yeah.
What is the equity of the district and how we split this up with UIL? Or will we have the same amount on each side of school? Each side of the district, to a fairness to, we're talking about just example for Davis,
yes,
for
sir.
the junior high people to go there. Well, that would be great for them to build their sports on. But how about the other high schools building their sports programs on, coming from a junior? How are we divided up equally across the district in doing this?
So we had actually, I'm sorry, Dr. Alfred, we had actually had that conversation. So I think that as they started having the conversation exploring, well, perhaps Davis is a good option, or I think Dr. Goffney and Coach Thompson maybe had the conversation. Well, maybe we can explore Davis. I think that may be a good option. Well, perhaps maybe even considering maybe even having do we need to consider having it at maybe two high schools as opposed to 2 middle school sites? That may work better for the district all the way around. I think it just depends. Once we have a little bit better understanding of the financial implications and what the district can afford, then we'll be able to make a better recommendation to the board. It does allow us the opportunity to have better planning, because as we're looking at rotations, we're also having to understand the fact that just like we were able to upgrade, we have to look at upgrades as well. So we upgraded the tracks over at Nimitz and at Eisenhower. That's in our rotation, so that if we're able to consider doing this at the high schools, then that avoids the future planning of having to include those in future rotations. And we're addressing that now, as opposed to having to do 2 middle school sites and then include that in the rotation at a later date. So we're investing that money now as opposed to having to wait and invest that later. And I don't know if that makes it.
So, Mr. Mead, to kind of address your question, it would allow us to be more, to solve several problems instead of just solving one problem. Right now, we don't have enough middle school sites to participate. But in addition to addressing that, we will also be looking at the fact that we'll have a complete athletic complex, like Conroe ISD, for an example. We have more students in Conroe. They have 2 competition sites. They have Wood Forest and they have Conroe High School. And so the only reason we were even looking at Lewis or Shotwell and not Jones, which was brand new, or one of the other new schools, was because of space. So it wasn't through an equity lens per se, it was geography. Lewis and Shotwell were in a location that more schools could get to easier, and they actually had the space. So that was the only reason. So if that was the only reason, Davis is a location that's easy to get to. The goal is not to have 5 competition sites. We appreciate and are excited about what Thorne offers, but the fact that we already have competition sites at Davis for that reason.
Right. And also, just to add to what the 2 of you have said, remember Plummer Middle School is already, we use that as a middle school competition site. And so it's already considered a home field for multiple schools. So we consider that, what I'm going to say, in the center, easy, and access to that campus is easy. So you know that Davis is not far from Plummer. We can say really across the street from Plummer. So with the ease and feasibility of scheduling, we already have routes scheduled to go to Plummer. So adding routes to Davis, that process is already, would be more seamless, is what I'm trying to explain. And so like Dr. Goffney and Dr. Chapa already mentioned, we have to do what we can afford to do, but at the same time, taking into consideration what are the best options that we have available. So it appears as though Davis would be, it would make more sense for Davis to be it's our newest high school, and it already hosts multiple competitions, sports in competition play.
For all the high schools.
For all the high schools. So why not be able to extend or maximize on that opportunity? MacArthur, as you know, does not have the space it does not have the same facilities, athletic facilities that Davis has because of space. When you think about Aldine High School, where there's Smith Stadium that's already there that we use for competition sites. When you think about Eisenhower, again, there's a space issue. So Davis is, being our newest high school, more was put into competition facilities. So go ahead and making it more comprehensive makes more sense at this time versus going and updating or revisiting the other 3 campuses, because we know that we're working with a limited amount of funding as well.
On the east side of campus, there are the 3 elementary, the middle schools would be Hambrick, Grantham.
Could be any. It could be home advantage for him.
Where do they get to go to? I mean, would they go all the way over to Davis?
So that is being considered, and location is really critical, because what we don't want is we want our travel time to be reduced. We need to look at scheduling and travel time, and all that is being considered, and that's why we're exploring all of our options, because we want to make sure that we make the best decision for our students. And so this is really preliminary, but we also want to take into consideration what is going to be best for all of the students in the entire district. both for
now and in the
for
future.
now and in the future. And so
And Dr. Chapa, those three schools that you, Mr. Mead, you just named, I think they're currently playing at Aldine Middle School, which
Yes.
is closest in proximity to
Uh-huh.
those campuses. So I would assume that they would continue to
Continue to go
play
there.
at Aldine Middle School because that makes sense for them to be able to get to Aldine Middle School within a reasonable amount of time.
Doesn't that one need to actually be updated? Poly Middle, that's old.
It's an older campus, but the facilities are adequate for playing middle school football games.
And then when you all do this, you'll bring this all back to the
Oh,
board?
absolutely. Yes, sir.
And then
Yes.
let the board know
Absolutely.
what you're doing and see what
Yes,
their
sir.
input is.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And I like the thought that y'all are
thinking
considering
differently.
a high school because that's good marketing and it's good competition. It makes a lot of sense when it comes to sports, when we're looking at the big picture of athletics. I'm happy to hear that.
I like that. I like the idea that marketing may be one school like that. It's very good. It's a big plus for their district.
Because if you think about it, MOC, you can't have a track meet.
No.
There's no track.
And I hate that.
And there's no, so we don't have a all-inclusive.
Yeah, we don't.
Parking is always an issue with
We have-
wherever you go.
And David
always.
says it's more than
And
that.
it- And when you look at that, it's very important. It's a marketing deal that you have to consider.
And
Not only for parents, but for also the buses and all that, just getting in there in and out quickly.
I don't think MOC could ever be updated
No.
to track.
It needs to be updated, but not with a
Not-
track.
probably not.
For track.
Not for track. It needs more
Definitely
space.
need to be updated.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And then we also need to keep in mind what our neighboring school districts have already done and aren't doing. They're doing some things when it comes to stadiums and complexes. So we don't want to lose our students to go to our neighboring districts because they are doing it.
So Dr. Chapa, another important question is that I know we have four currently. We have four competition sites for the middle schools, and the thought is to add the one. And three of these sites are being considered. So I guess the other question is the one sufficient?
So, Dr. Garcia, I think based on what the financial implications are going to be, it may be that we are able to bring to the board one, possibly two. And so it would really depend on what we would be able to.
Need is for two.
The need is for two.
Right. If we can, if we're planning, I think that we should optimize the opportunity and the need. If the need is there, and we're going to only settle for one because we, it may not be to our advantage in the long run to just plan for the one. If we need two, then we might need to consider the two.
Thank you for your feedback. If there are no more questions, President Mead, that's all I have.
Okay. Dr. Don Ayers, are you ready?
Good evening, President Mead, Dr. Goffney, Dr. Chapa. My agenda begins on page 34. We are bringing to you tonight a recommendation to approve the 2019-2020 district and campus improvement plans. Please know that we have been working on these plans diligently, both the campuses, the district, and the department. They were a collaborative effort between the department leaders, the campus leaders, and the supervisors of the campuses to ensure that they were aligned to our new strategic plan and that they also take into account both the needs of the campus and the departments. The plans will be reviewed on a quarterly basis, and adjustments will be made when needed to make sure that we are able to accelerate progress towards the goals. And then once approved, all of these plans will be placed on the district website, campus websites, and department sites. Are there any questions?
What, about 3,000 pages of those plans? I think that one went through this weekend. There's about 3,000 pages. I didn't read them all.
And we've streamlined the process, Mr. Mead. So this year, the campuses were allowed to place some of the required state mandated elements outside of the plan, but connected to the plan in order to make the plans a little bit more manageable, if you will. But yes, it is a comprehensive process to take campuses in the department and the district through the improvement planning process.
I did have a little trouble actually looking through them. They would, the size was on my computer was awful small. I had to go back and forth across to see the things. I couldn't see the whole. It wouldn't blow up where I could blow it up enough for mine to see. You could do it, blow it up? Okay. Well, maybe it's just I had computer trouble, but I had to go back and forth across mine to see from line one to line one. But anyway, it's a lot. And I did read some of those, and there's a lot in there, and there's planned for every school.
There is, yes,
But
sir.
we'll be taking those some at a time, a few at a time. Are you doing it all at one time, or just one section out of everything we're doing? What's the first plan? What's the first thing we do?
So are you talking about the first thing we do in the campus improvement planning process? Are you talking about?
Are you doing all the strategic plans at one time?
So yes, you have all of the plans for, they have been uploaded to Board Book and they're in Plan for Learning. Once approved, yes, every campus has a plan, departments have plans, the district has a plan. All of those are aligned to our new strategic plan. And so once approved, we'll put them on the website, and every campus is working on their campus improvement plan. Every department is working on their department improvement plan. The district will be reviewing their district improvement plan to make sure, on a quarterly basis, to make sure that we're making progress towards the goal. So it will be all of them.
I do want to follow up on the.
They're all there.
Huh?
They're all there.
Yeah.
You got a password and.
Yes, I did want to follow up on this, on what Mr. Mead referred to. The board, and you've stated it a while ago, the board is charged with looking at the plans and approving them, which is a pretty monumental task given the number. I remember when I first became a board member and there were less than 50, and even that was a struggle. But this is the same expectation for every board across every district in the state. And given that there are some districts that have a total of 250 student population, that our challenge is much larger than theirs. And so I guess I'm with Mr. Mead in this, the complexity of this charge for us, because we know it's important. And at the same time, it's a challenge to not be able to feel that one has complied adequately with the charge, with the expectation. So I'm just wondering, I know what Mr. Mead is asking is, how are we doing this? Well, they're approved. The expectation is that we will approve these, and they're all approved all at one time, and effective tomorrow. They're set to be posted and will be implemented. And so I'm just wondering if there is another systematic way in which a large district such as ours can review over 80 plans that are this complex. And particularly because they're going to be posted, and I'm going to refer to page 10 of 23 of the plans, the document plan. I don't know if you have it up, but it's page 34 of that particular board book posting of the improvement plans. And these are, again, public documents. And I remember reading the very first ones as a board member that I read. And I was quite concerned about it because of the nature of the statements that are in there that are publicly available to all constituents, whether they are parents of that particular school or whether it's anybody in our community at all that wants to look at any one of the 80-some plans. But one of the other charges, of course, along with just approving the plans, is a responsibility for supporting what the administrators at that building, as well as the oversight team, in our case, the assistant superintendents, have in seeing that those plans goals are met and that they have the resources, and whether they're human resources or material resources or whatever they need. So I'm referring you to page 34 of that document because it's troubling, and I'm with Mr. Mead. I mean, this is only because I got to page 34 and not because I got to page 3000. I'm like him. I didn't go beyond that. I tried to skim through these, but these are stated in ways I think that are templates that the state provides. But when you see the statement, the problem statement, number one here, that there's not enough district level support for student success. This is at the bottom of page 34 of that particular board book document, or page 10 of 23 for that particular school. And then the root cause of that is that there is lack of district leadership understanding of campus focus, goals, and objectives. I'm sorry. Okay. And of course, this is one of our, severe needs schools. I mean, I just hate to not feel as a board member that administrators and teachers are developing these goals and feel that frustration that they are not supported. And I don't know, that there is a system that we can better organize to review what is happening at those schools and what those schools are feeling or needing, so that we as a board take a more comprehensive look at this and not just be the ones to say rubber stamp, I didn't read 3,000 pages of this, but I'm going to prove it.
Right.
Without really having the deeper connection for the responsibility that is inherent in this charge, that we do something about it as a board. Because obviously the legislators who determined this felt like, if there's something needed at a school, absolutely the board should know, so that the board can then take action with either fiscal responsibility, facilities responsibility, something that we can do to support that. So I suppose what I'm asking is to ask the administration, Dr. Goffney, and the administrators here, to help us, the board, with this charge, to be able to be more responsible to what we are charged to do, so that we can support you in the work you're doing to support these schools, and to obviously support the schools, so that we do not have statements like this frustration that is stated on this page. I don't know how.
Can I say something? I think that's a great point. I'm looking right at lanes. I see it under there are 4 areas in which the campuses had to conduct their strengths assessment as well as their opportunities. And the problem statement under perceptions for lane, you're correct, says that. We worked as the school's office team to look at all of the campus improvement plans to provide feedback, as did Dawn's office. And this was because the plans this year were, they were brand new for them because of our new strategic plan. They did receive training this summer in how they were to conduct their needs assessments, and most of the schools did those this summer. I think the wording of this is absolutely something that we need to take a second look at. Some of those, we don't want the perception, of course, that the district is not providing the needed support. And you are correct, these are public documents that will go up. We tried to give feedback to almost every school, I bet, yes, because there were some areas in which they needed more robust strategies. But this is something that for Lane, I think we need to look at more closely. But you are correct, we are a large district and 82 schools. It is a large job to do. And so I think Dawn and I had a conversation just a couple weeks ago in collaboration with the school's office that we want to change the timeline for this so that we have more time in order to look at some of these plans. We've been looking at them for a while, but I think that our timeline can change. And in that case, we can have maybe greater feedback that we give to the schools. So I appreciate you seeing that one.
Yeah, and I certainly all on the board understand the role that we play. Our role is a governance role, and yours is administering, all of these requirements for the school district. So don't misunderstand. I'm not, I don't believe anybody on the board would try to overstep and try to administer this, but we do, as I said, have that responsibility for oversight of this. And there just needs to be I don't know, Dr. Goffney, with maybe the larger school districts that you are in relation with,
process
that you
is-
can, talk among the superintendents in those districts to get a better understanding of this challenge, because I know that it's simpler for a small school district.
And the way it typically works and the way we were hoping it worked, and I do appreciate you catching that piece, is we look at the strategic plan and the district improvement plan overall, and then that filters down into each of our schools, and each school assistant Sue works with a small number of schools, and then it feeds up to our schools office and our data office. And I think that you can speak to Fort Bend, same size, same process, similar process.
Yes, we encountered some of the same challenges as well. And so it's always an opportunity on how can we be better at this. But as you know, every year they add more and more to, every plate on the CIP.
But the thing that I'm proud of in the process is that we did change it, because a lot of times when it doesn't change, it's just a repeat of the previous year. So everybody had a new plan, and like you said, it was a little bit more cumbersome because we were rolling out a new plan.
In saying that, I think one of the things that I heard too was that because we just didn't roll over the plans, everyone had to start from scratch. And I would say even with the human resources department, there were some sections that we hadn't done in the past. And so Dawn was calling me, Javier, you don't have this. And so I had to quickly learn my password because the people who were in charge of typing that up weren't there for the day. So I think it was a lesson learned on all our part.
And I'm going to tell you, Dr. Garcia, as we're completing the plans and people are sharing those types of statements with us, something that we've learned from Holdsworth is that feedback is a gift. And whether or not they are receiving the support, that is their perception of what their needs are. And so that is a gift to us, that is their perception, because then we as a leadership team have the opportunity to go in and have a different level of support. And so I believe that as we are looking and learning and understanding what it is that they need, then we're able to go in and understand how we can better support them. And so Lane is unique. Is a unique campus, and because they are so unique, it is difficult to collaborate with other campuses. They are special. They are special and have needs that are unique to their setting. And so we do have to look at how we can support them independent of everyone else. So that'll give us a good learning opportunity to see what we can do to help support them.
That did go across my mind as well, because this throughout the district is the most fragile of all of our student populations.
Right.
And so the question that occurred in my head regarding Lane was, are we doing it right? And I know that we pride ourselves in the services that we provide those children, but nevertheless, it's one of those other opportunities, as you've said, to go back and do a more thorough review of what it is that we do there and how we do it, and whether, in fact, what we're doing there is in fact the best thing for the students. Because I know that one of the issues here and one of the other pages was that question of, you have the child, and I saw the student population it's almost 1-to-1. I mean, there's almost one adult for every child. I think, 16-to-1 or something like that was the ratio. So you may have, in that case, a teacher who is in a self-contained situation, special needs certified, but nevertheless, that person has to do all of the core content areas. In other words, I mean, are we actually doing a service to the students or a disservice because we've operated that way for so long, and maybe it is time to go back and do an assessment of whether what we're doing there really provides the optimal support for not only the students who are so fragile, but the faculty and the staff who over the years have had to adapt a different method of teaching because of the setting or because of the needs or because of the situation they're in. So
we're actually pretty proud of the strides that we're taking in providing a different level of support from our school assistant, our school's office. In the past, Lane was with all high schools and that type of support. And I mean, it was difficult to give them the attention that they needed with all of the comprehensive schools. And so this year, we did it a little differently, and we have a school assistant soup here tonight, Ms. Nguyen.
Good evening. Thank you so much for bringing out the information that you found. And I also wanted to say to you that is exactly what's happening this year. We're taking a comprehensive look at Lane. Currently, I just met last week. We just sat down to identify what are the next steps and the purpose and what are we striving for the future for Lane. And we're talking about making sure that our students have a plan, that we start with them from pre-K so that when they get to high school, we have a transition plan. Parents know we're talking about making sure that they are aware of day habs and different opportunities that our students will have once they get to Lane and after Lane. And so currently what you're talking about, we'll be bringing things up, I'm sure, in the future, but we are heavily working on the future of Lane right now. So I'm new to the district and I'm new to working with them, but it's been a great learning opportunity. And trust me, I'm stretching them 100% to make sure that we do what's best for all kids.
On another side of that, it's been a while since I've been involved in the development of a campus plan. But one thing that we did back when we had the site-based committee is at the end of the year, before we wrote the new one, we went back and looked at what we had accomplished and what we hadn't accomplished. And I don't remember getting directions to do that, but we did it.
We did.
Is there a process to follow up, to ask each campus, okay, which of these were accomplished, which were not? I mean, is there an expectation for that?
Measuring.
Yes, there is actually built into the Plan for Learning system that we use for our campus plans. I love the fact that they have what are called formative reviews. And so, for example, in November is the first formative review, and each campus and their team, campus improvement team, they sit down and they look at every strategy and they basically slide it over. It's really nice and easy nowadays, and say there's been no progress, little progress, some progress, so that we can see by June, and that's the last formative review. So for example, last year, all of our schools conducted all of their formative reviews by June, and we could see for each strategy what are ones that they want to continue for the following year, discontinue, or even update. And so what I told them at the end of the year is that's what you print out. You do your needs assessment and you have that side by side when you're creating this new plan, so that we're not just putting things down to put them down. We're assessing and evaluating whether or not this truly had an impact on our teachers and our students. So yes, that's built into our system.
It's reported to the staff.
That is, it is to be reported to the staff quarterly. Yes.
Also, if I can just so all of you know, I think that we're on the exact same page. I know that our meeting with Dr. Garcia and Mr. Mead, our meeting in the school's office was exactly what you just said, that we want to go deep into these, that we want to review them. That's where we talked about the timeline, that we want them, at some point, September 1st, something like that. We kind of came up with it. So we'd have a month. So we'd have time, 6 weeks or so, to really go through them with the campuses. So we're on the same page as the board. Absolutely.
I'm just asking from, I've never done what you guys are talking about. And I have a tendency to look at things from a 10,000 foot level. And when I went to the Plan for Learning website, it has needs assessments. It tells me the goals, or in those types of those are the places I went to answer broad questions as to governance and understanding. I won't get into the weeds. I will tell you that now. There are people a lot more apt in that. But am I wrong into going into this to get that type of view for what I'm looking for?
That is correct.
Because everything is listed there, all of the needs, goals, and again, I can take an hour, a couple hours and go through them and get some idea about that, and maybe rely on other board members or the staff to go into the weeds. Okay,
Correct.
Thank you.
Because the goal is we want not only the district improvement plan, but the campus improvement plans to be living, breathing documents. We don't want them to go on a shelf. We don't want it to be a compliance piece. We want them to really inform the work that we're doing. And so I'm excited about the conversations and look forward to how we can tweak the rollout, because Mr. Mead again asked and just read, he said the fact that we're having to approve and our challenge is different. It's like you said, with all the schools across Texas, I came from a district with 16 schools and it was tough. The board was like, oh my God. And so just imagine 82. And so if there's a way that we can either focus on primary, elementary, or start at district first, and then maybe high school, and then kind of roll it down so that the board can have more time to kind of review and look at.
And when you look at our responsibility, I know what y'all are doing is good. When you look at our responsibility on page 35, it says what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to, at a minimum, support the state goals and objectives under chapter 4, but it says plans, it says, are presented to you during study session for your review, your discussion, and approval. There's no way in the world that we can look at this tonight and look at everything, discuss it, the objectives, and approve it. Like that. If we're trying to follow the rules of law. Yeah.
Yes. Good discussion.
Other questions? Okay, that concludes my portion of the agenda.
Done, okay. Then we will go to Dr. Todd Davis.
All right. Good evening, Mr. Mead, board members, Dr. Goffman, Dr. Chapa. My agenda begins on page 37 of the board book. I have 2 items on my agenda this evening. First, under consent, I have the yearly request for the board to approve our application for the staff development waiver. This gives us the opportunity to add up to 2,100 hours, which we do not go to that extent. We have 3 staff development days that we would be asking for a waiver for. That allows us to use those minutes towards our overall requirement of 75,600 minutes. So, are there any questions?
Board? No questions.
No. And then next on page, I believe it is 40, under discussion, I have the yearly review of the multilingual program. That provides you information of the multilingual program from last year from in 5 major areas, a number of students in the program, the TEL-PASS performance of our students, bilingual and ESL students, in addition to STAR performance, exit criteria, and then staffing. Any questions about the multilingual program review?
Board?
Yeah. No, regarding this one, I'll just say that there was a community forum in which the misrepresentation of some information was shared with the expectation or the understanding that perhaps students would begin in a bilingual program early years and then stay in the bilingual program through high school.
11th grade.
And so there needs, I think, a clarification of the different program offerings for students who are English learners in our district. But nevertheless, the question here is, of course, we want to support students so that they can move on into the regular curriculum, regular programming, when they've successfully either exited or supported for a number of years before fully exiting. But the numbers, are still indicative of the need for
Clarify
support.
that for me, Dr. Garcia.
I'm sorry.
You said the misperception. I'm just wanting clarity on what that was.
Well, they were, so the question, it was a question at a forum, and the question was, why is it that students begin the bilingual program in elementary and are still in the bilingual program through high school? Well, we don't have bilingual programs beyond the elementary level. And so there's just a misunderstanding.
All the misinformation.
With some of the candidates answering questions.
Community forum.
I wasn't there.
No, but I think that what I was trying to clarify there is that there is a misperception among community members.
Given the wrong information.
No, we are not giving the wrong information. There's just, the services for students who are English learners are complex. It's not one program. There are multiple programs that serve these children.
Right.
And so all I'm saying is that, good, continue with a varied program that
Color
we
came
have.
back because we had left.
Yes, thank you.
No, not quite. Todd. I'm looking at color.
Yes, yeah. Well, it took a minute to process that.
All of the candidates that were there, the question was wrong because the way it was asked, why are students being kept in bilingual from elementary all the way through 11th grade?
weren't.
And
They're not.
That's wrong.
They weren't getting that.
So some of the candidates answered and said, well, I wouldn't keep them in that for that long.
As if that was the truth. Yeah.
Well, technically, we're not allowed to keep them in, the state doesn't allow for that to happen.
It was a bad question to begin with.
Because it
The
was
kids
phrased
beyond
wrong
fifth
from the
grade
beginning.
Don't get instruction in Spanish.
Right.
but I think in their minds, they were.
Okay, well, that's
We're
not
starting a
the,
dual language program,
Right.
and that's going to be intentional.
Yes.
But yeah.
But yes.
Yes,
well,
but
that's not
completely
the root
different
of, the root of my question really is not that. I just wanted to share that there's a misperception out there. The root of my question really is that we need to do something to support these students because of the numbers that are successful, the numbers that are, the scores that they have are not what we would want them to be in any case. So
That is absolutely.
and so that's the same question, for special needs students or whether they're bilingual students, which really are the two categories of students that really are those that we need to support the most in terms of our assessments district-wide. And so again, the question is, what can the board do to support those program needs? And as indicated by the results here. We need to do more, but we just need to know what it is that we can do.
Well, number one being, just as you just said, understanding the challenges of the program, challenges of the need, for us to serve the needs of students who are learning a second language, and then our need to develop that proficiency in that second language, of course, by the time they exit elementary school, because the services in their native language are no longer provided. And then as we explore different options in our program, those are some, in the future, we are looking at exploring additional options in our program to provide a variety of services for our students, potentially building biliteracy in our students.
Right.
And of course, we have the two-way dual language program, which is an exciting opportunity. So, no, I think just awareness and just continued support. In that area.
And the other is probably in the staffing, when we have the number of bilingual exceptions and ESL waivers that we have, which, are larger than we need to have. I don't know, we just need to support,
You may tell them.
whether it's the continuation or additional support of the Grow Your Own program or something so that we have the qualified certified staff to support these students is also important.
I agree. I think you mentioned it. The Grow Your Own program is one primary way to support. The exceptions and waivers are always a concern. Of course, that means that we don't have a certified bilingual or ESL teacher in those classrooms. And our multilingual department, it does work very closely with Dr. Villarreal and the Human Resources Department to come up with creative, innovative ways for recruiting.
And we still have the Grow Your Own program that's still managed by the Human Resources Department.
Yes, we do. And then there's actually two programs. One in, as you heard, one of the student teachers this afternoon from Texas Tech, and then we work on the other one with Lone Star.
Any other questions or comments? No? And that concludes my agenda for this evening.
Thanks, Todd. Katie?
Good evening, Mr. Mead, Dr. Goffney, members of the board. My agenda items begin on page 48. The first item is just the annual approval or information regarding our high school and ninth grade exam and early release schedule. So there will be 2 days of early release, the Wednesday and Thursday before. Are there any questions regarding our exam schedule? And that was modified based on our AB day and our Imelda day, just so you know.
Katie, do we
Yes, ma'am.
still have an exemption policy for students?
For high
Final
school
exams?
exemptions? Yes,
Yes, we do.
yes. The next item is an informational piece regarding where we are with our social and emotional learning and multi-tiered systems of support. I included some informational pieces regarding training that has been ongoing the intensive sites that we have for specific areas such as our multi-tiered systems of support, which used to be our PBIS, or Positive Behavior Intervention Support, too many acronyms right there. So we will be having a training this Thursday with those 11 schools, and we are working diligently with our new director of social emotional learning. He is going out and supporting those schools as well as other staff members. Also, the social emotional learning starting today, we have staff members from our district. All teachers and professional staff received a survey on Panorama Education, as well as our 3rd through 12th grade students. For the next 2 weeks, they will have an opportunity to take this survey, and we will be coming back later on to share some of those results with you. This is baseline data so that we can see what we're doing well in regards to SEL, social emotional learning, and where we need to provide more support. And finally, our restorative practices, and that is ongoing at 12 of our campuses, who are doing an incredible job. If I can just say a shout out, we had a check-in meeting with the 12 restorative. They are taking it to new heights. Each of them have embraced it in different ways. I'm especially proud of AEC and GAP, who have teamed up and are doing what are called restorative release. And that is for students who are going back to their home campuses. They are inviting the home campus, and they actually do a restorative session with the student, and hopefully the parent can come as well. And it's been incredibly successful. Any questions regarding that update for MTSS and social emotional learning?
I don't know if that question fits there, but I was at a forum the other night, and Viola was there too. And there was one lady there that had a child that was autistic, and she was telling us how smart he was to pass all of the state tests, but he had a problem with social learning, and that we were not providing social learning for her child. And she went to several people. I would like to know, I know she is, I would like to know where to send her.
Send her to Dr. Davis.
Yeah.
Because I travel all across the district and speak to many community members, and with our autistic students and our students who suffer from autism, we get great reviews on what the amount of support we provide them and our
Probably just have
program.
not gone to the right place.
Right. so
Yeah,
we can
and we'll
assist
work
them.
with special education as well, because they are pretty intentional in providing for those students.
I will get her name for you, okay?
Absolutely.
Please, yeah.
And I also have a question, since we're
Yes,
talking
ma'am.
about this, for either you, Ms. Rhodey, or Dr. Davis. I know we focus on bilingual. We have the numbers, 13,542 ESL, 8,859. But I'm also concerned about the perception we have about our at-risk students. Do we have the number of at-risk students that we have, or our 504, or even our overage students? Because I know that's a concern. Those group of students may lead into our other reports that Dr. Davis reports on. So I'm interested in knowing, we always focus on bilingual ESL, even our special ed POP. But what about, I don't know the number of our at-risk students, and I know the number is growing because of the mental health, 504. I'm just curious to know what about our numbers in the district.
We'll get you the exact numbers, but we've had numerous conversations at ELT. And actually, we have, we're looking at our program for our middle school overage students, as well as an opportunity to address the needs of some of our parents who did not come back to school for whatever reason. So we have Marcy we were selected. You want to tell them about
Yeah, absolutely. It was a great segue. We can definitely get the numbers of at-risk students, 504, and then we've had several conversations regarding our overage, specifically our middle school students. We had an opportunity, TEA has reached out, and we are partnering with them through what's called the School Empowerment Network. And we're a part of an inaugural cohort. I say we. Marcy Strahan, who's the principal of Hall Center for Education, is actually today was the first session that she participated in, because one of the things, and Dr. Goffney alluded to it, we want to look at possibilities for Hall and how we can broaden the the scope of services that can happen there. Ms. Strahan will be attending 10 sessions looking at how we can innovate schools. And it's not only curriculum modules on how we can rethink the schools that we have, but also personal leadership. She's going to be working on community engagement, student recruitment, once we start solidifying what our options are. We brought up about overage middle schoolers that are possibilities. Also our kids that are 21 to 26 years old. There's a lot of possibilities for Hall, and I think we have the right leader there to who is passionate about doing things differently for students. So, and the great thing also is that all expenses are covered through this grant, the fellowship. So she will be participating. She's one of only 5 in the state that are doing this incredible thing. So I'm excited to hear what is going to be possible and how we can maybe expand some of the services that we have.
And also, I hope we include human trafficking in there as well, because I know that's on the rise, and I know our teachers need to be aware of this, and I hope that we're going to offer some type of training for our staff.
We have had human trafficking training more recently. Within the last year, we brought a group in to talk to our counselors, but we do need to bring it back around. And also our mental health training is to be updated to include information about human trafficking. And that's training that all staff, campus staff, is to have. We have an online training right now, and we will be updating that training to include information about human trafficking.
I think what it comes to is that for our students that you mentioned, our 504 students are at-risk students, all students that are have emotional challenges. It's a wraparound service that is necessary. So one of the things that we haven't focused on in the past is that social emotional learning. Now that we're really focusing on that piece in combination to a very deliberate, strategic professional learning plan for improved tier 1 instruction, we're providing that wraparound services that hopefully can support the needs of all students, but really in the end, eliminate our number of at-risk students or dramatically decrease it and serve the needs of our 504 students so that there isn't a need for that additional support. So it's really about just providing that first line of support, preparing everyone in the district to manage that well.
I'm sorry, go ahead. It's a quick comment. I just want to share that, and I know it's not news to you. Houston is a hub of human trafficking,
yes,
and the average age for children now it's dropped down from 15 to 11.
Yeah.
So they're the ones that are being targeted at 11-year-olds, which is what, our middle school?
Barely middle school.
Sixth graders. Fifth and sixth grade. It's very, very concerning.
My concern may be a little bit different. Given the comprehensive, the training, it wasn't comprehensive. It was a pretty general training that we all went to over at the Department of Education. I'm hoping our counselors are better trained than we were at this introduction, because there's so much ambiguity in some of the issues, and it's so dependent on victim impact statements. And from a legal point of view, I would just call it hearsay. Without evidence, there's this victim impact statement. And I'm thinking that on the counselor level, so that none of us get in any trouble just from a fight between a girlfriend and a boyfriend, that we end up making accusations, that I'm just very concerned of that from a liability point of view.
Yeah, they
A woman.
that
Quorum.
Okay. In fact, I was actually at Region 4 this morning, and Crime Stoppers did a presentation, Safe Schools Institute, about human trafficking as well, and information that we will be bringing in and incorporating. The counselors, when they are working with students, there are things, not only just the counselors, but community in general need to be looked look out for, because we've had reports of like busyness at a house and a student not going to school that the neighbor noticed and things like that. So it's a whole community effort when trying to determine if we have a child that could possibly be trafficking. We have not, where we had many instances where we have known that to be the case, but we do talk to students, the counselors know how to talk to students in a sensitive manner to bring that information out. Sometimes it could be a parent or a foster parent or what have you, that the child is actually living with, or in an environment that's taking a child. We've had an instance where the parent has taken a child to a club and, pretty much trafficking the child and that kind of thing. So we are very conscientious about working with those students and trying to pick up on those signs of that something is just not right. And we bring that training into the district. I try and bring it in every other year or so for our groups. But we will be updating that for this school year. Absolutely.
Was that when you went to Charlotte, was that a young police officer that putting it on?
No, it was actually Region 4 Safe and Healthy Schools Network. It was a legislative update, a little bit of what I'm going to talk about in a minute with all the legislative bills, the mental health, the threat assessment, all of that information. They did an update today, and Crime Stoppers was part of that presentation.
Before you go, that segue, we shared some information with you all about HCDE because we wanted to make sure you got the training in time. However, when we called Mr. McGowan over at Region 4, Robbie said that the instructions hadn't been communicated yet. And he said and the curriculum hadn't been shared. So the training you got was probably more introductory than substantive. And so he was hoping that at Region 4, at one of your board meetings, they'll have some more meat. So look for more information to come out soon. We had sent it out already, and I knew many of you might have been available, and a lot of other board members were going to attend. But then when we called Region 4, they were like, they haven't even put the information out yet. So
But it was very good.
But it was still good.
It was a good, making you aware of what's out there.
Yes,
because
ma'am.
it's constantly changing.
Yes.
When I saw it, we went the other night, when I saw it, I thought it was good. Maybe not really in detail, but I thought to myself, this is something that every teacher.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Every
Yes,
teacher
sir.
should know about. So some of the signs to look for, okay? Just that alone would be helpful to teachers. But probably Region 4 would do a much better job and more thorough probably.
Yeah, it is required
that's
as
what we
part of
read,
their training now. So they will be having that piece of it.
That concludes my part. I will turn it over to Dr. Davis for the rest of the report.
Thank you, Katie. And if I may, Dr. Todd Davis alluded to, Dr. Booker, what we're doing with social and emotional learning. And Katie, also, we are working hard to help our campuses with that overall school culture and knowing how to communicate with students and to reduce some of those challenges that they may have with behavior. We are happy with where we are with that, but we're still rolling out. We still have sessions that our campus teams will be attending to have more training on those school-wide tier 1 MTSS support. So that should help every child at risk. 504 SPED, our social and emotional learning director, has been very intentional in working with campuses with challenging behaviors and working with our students. So we should see some promising results from that with our overall school culture. And Mr. Mead, board members, my agenda starts on page 53. There is one item for consent. And as you are aware, that Senate Bill 11 requires school boards to establish threat assessment and safe and supportive school teams, and also processes and procedures for those teams. Well, tonight I'm seeking approval for the establishment of each campus's threat assessment and safe and supportive school teams to be made above the principal, campus behavior coordinator, the designated AP who handles safety and emergency campus operations, the school counselor, a classroom teacher, special education teacher or counselor, the campus-based police officer where there is an officer assigned, and the school social worker, so that we can, our teams can get established on the campuses. The TA and Texas School Safety Center are to collaborate regarding the rules to establishing a safe and supportive school program and developing model policies and procedures. Region 4 said today that this probably won't happen till around June. So we will come back to you when we have that model and when we have developed policies and procedures for you to see for your recommendation for implementation as well. But for tonight, I'm seeking approval to establish our threat assessment and safe and supportive campus teams for your approval. Any questions?
The only question that I had, Dr. Davis, is that this is a team for each of the 80-something.
Yes, ma'am. It would be a
I was
team.
just wondering if it would be appropriate at the high schools, ninth grade centers, and I don't know about the middle schools. I know that all of these are professional people at the campus, and I just, occurred to me that when we're talking about the safety assessment, if the voices of either the parents or the children, the high school kids in particular, would be appropriate. I mean, is this a list recommended by the particular bill?
Yes. So,
and were there provisions for the addition of others to this list?
Yes, ma'am. So what happens with this is when the teams during their meetings, they can pull in other information, or if there's another professional, say the school nurse, depending on the threat, depending on the crisis, that they may pull in to investigate, to add more expertise to what they're dealing with during the investigation. But the bill did recommend and ask for certain levels of expertise with SPED, with the teaching, with the mental health, with the social worker, the police officer was all recommended from the bill. But they will pull in as the teams are meeting and during their investigations, because they're to review data. There are a lot of processes, a lot of procedures, a lot of things that are required of this campus team when they're meeting and pulling in and reviewing data and looking at threats and things like that.
But you do foresee that the 80-something teams, so in other words, there probably will be a uniform template. So
Absolutely.
So that the 80-something schools in the district look somewhat alike in terms of what the policies, the model policies are.
Absolutely.
And that we don't have these varying elements that we would not be able to support in some way.
Once we receive the models from the state and the Texas Safety Center, we will establish our campus policies, and each campus will have the same policies and procedures.
So Charlotte, you're going to wait then until you get the template before you start this, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Absolutely.
We anticipate these changes in policy will be a part of the next policy updates, where we'll probably have a couple. So they anticipate by the end of the month that TASB will start issuing, and hopefully, because we start with A, that ours might come first, hopefully, if not, for sure in November.
Any other questions about the threat assessment teams?
No question.
Okay. Continuing on page 657. 57, you have the district police activity report. That's for discussion. If you do, are there any questions for our monthly police interaction reports? The largest numbers are from our campus evenings, nights, weekends, patrolling, and our campus patrols, normal police routine. That's where you see the largest numbers. Any questions?
Robert, are we going to be doing that report that we used to do with incidents?
The discipline report will be following. This is the police activities. Any questions about it? If not, we'll move to our monthly discipline report. So this looks a little bit different because we wanted to look at where we are and what progress we're making with our overall school culture, school climate. And if you look at it, you see August, September, and we have current year students with events, prior year, and we have a difference. Where you see green, that means we have less events this year as compared to this same time last school year. So we're about 1,382 events less at this point than we were last year. And the same thing, that's behavior events. If you look at in-school suspension, we are almost 1,000 events less for in-school suspension and 393 for out-of-school suspensions, and our discretionary removal actions were 55 less than where we were last year. And we will do this each month just so we can gauge where we are.
Dr. Davis, does each campus have the same protocol of reporting their cases or the things that's going on in like behavior and
Yes.
ISS? Do they have the same?
So that's in eSchool, in our discipline management system, is where they report all the events that require any type of consequence or discipline is in our student management system in the discipline area.
And Dr. Booker, we review those. So monthly, actually my secretary works with student services, pulls those by campus. We look at ISS and OSS, as well as the number of days impacted by ADA. And then, so we look at it month to month by campus, so that if there are more supports that are needed for specific campuses, we can leverage those. Yes.
And the only reason I am asking, I've been in a situation where the principal had more than the other schools in the area.
Yes.
And so they stopped reporting.
Yeah.
So the numbers could go down. So that's the only reason I'm asking.
Aldine has actually been good with reporting. I've heard that across the state, actually, that instead of, because of numbers and with the state, that schools stop reporting, and but we do not do that practice that I'm aware of. We report all of our incidents.
We do. I will say though, last year, just looking at it by campus, we saw certain opportunities. There were some practices that we were doing just because they had always been done. For example, doing a 3-day out-of-school placement for hearings, or, just automatically reverting to the longest, and that may not necessarily be what we need to do. So we did have some conversations with campus principals, et cetera, on, and they started to see, well, we thought that was what we always had to do. Do you see what I mean? Right. We're still going to code, we're still going to report, but, a 3-day out-of-school suspension may not be what is best for this kid right now. You know what I mean? And so a 3-day in-school suspension with some support, that might be best. Right. And so what we hope to see is, yes, a reduction, authentic reduction in events, but also, that especially those out-of-school suspensions that are, that's an exclusionary factor. They're not getting any instruction.
They're not learning.
It's not beneficial.
Right.
That's right.
And I do want to add, this particular principal, instead of using the district form, and this is how that person was getting away with it, I'm not talking about anybody in Aldine, instead of using the regular form, the person had created his or her own form. so you didn't have to document it.
Right.
And it's surprising how teachers have become wise to that. In all to generate a removal list, a SAC list, or ISS or SS list, it comes through the system. So teachers know that. And so when they start seeing a separate form or separate list coming out, in our teachers in Aldine, they'll let us know for the most part.
Yes, they will.
But you're also, I'm glad to hear, Dr. Rhodey, that you're doing, so what we're seeing, what you're reporting to the board is a cumulative report, but
Right.
obviously the disaggregation of that information, whether you have more girls or more, more
Right.
males, less, but whatever the situation is for each campus, you're monitoring each of those campuses.
Absolutely.
So that if
Absolutely.
there is a big variation in that, you're able to monitor and understand what exactly is happening to support
Right.
what the kids need at each
And
campus.
We will know what campuses, how we can support those campuses with resources. So with our efforts with social and emotional learning, it is our hope that these numbers do decrease, but as Katie said, it's intentional. It's because of what we're doing for the school culture and climate.
And it was based on that data that we had from last year and how we were assigning campuses to those intensive sites. So we looked at which our elementary campuses at the highest exclusionary, they're part of those intensives. You know, we want to change what is happening and that's where Dr. Moore is spending the majority of his time. So it's not to punish campuses, but it's to say, what do we need to do to support you, you know, and ensure that the kids stay in class.
If there are no other questions, that concludes my report, Mr. Mead.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Javier?
Yes, good evening, President Mead, Dr. Goffney, Dr. Chapa, Board of Trustees. The HR agenda is on page 307 due to an addendum. And on the agenda, there's 5 information items. And also for executive session, I have 5 personnel matters to discuss. So the first board item is on page 64, and that's the monthly resources personnel report. And as you can see, since last month, we've had 15 resignations that have been received and approved and 4 retirements. Are there any questions about board item 1?
One of the things that struck me, because there was another question that was posed from a nurse, is that 2 of those 15 are nurses that resigned. And the suggestion by this particular nurse is that there is, that retention is a very big issue among nurses. And of course, we thanked her because we know, one, there's a shortage of nurses, not only in school nursing, but nursing in hospitals and nursing everywhere. And that she is continuing to be a nurse is really indicative of her willingness to help support that. But that is an area, at least that she suggested, where a good look at the whole system to support nurses in our district. I don't know that that is one of the categories of stipend. I know that math and science bilingual is.
It's not, and actually, so that's been brought to our attention is, would we consider giving a critical needs stipend to school nurses? Also, would we give bilingual stipends to nurses that speak Spanish? And, you know, there's a conversation that's already started happening with Dr. Charlotte Davis and I and Ms. Guillory. And so we're looking at stipends, and we're researching other school districts, because at this time there's no school districts in this area that offer those types of stipends. Plus, you know, how are we going to differentiate if we give a Spanish-speaking nurse a bilingual stipend because they say they speak Spanish, and how do we know they're actually communicating Spanish accurately and so forth. So those conversations have happened, other conversations on how to better recruit nurses. And so we're actually in the HR side looking at changing the application process, because they use the same application of teachers and it doesn't make sense to them from what they're telling us. So those conversations and work has already started, and we do understand that.
Then too, we've had conversations too with the new structure, because nurses were under curriculum instruction and they were a program director, and it was down deep deeply embedded. And so what we've done is restructured, and we're looking at most districts our size have a director of nursing and not a program director, which is more, it's not even equivalent to a coordinator. And so looking at the structure, and that's what we're going to be rolling out as well, because a lot of it is not money, it's the amount of support, expectations. Do they feel heard? Do they feel, I mean, you serve on those SHAC committees.
Exactly what
So, and we've had many
Right.
conversations about
Yes,
that.
I've been meeting with Ms. Guillory, and we've been strategically planning one about supporting how we can support our nurses more. And I did meet with Dr. Villarreal to talk about the hiring process, the possibility of stipends and things like that. I think just the mere fact, as Dr. Goffney said, of pulling off from up under where she felt buried maybe because it was curriculum, we're able to do a lot more work, a lot more intentional efforts with our nurses. And I think we will see some improvements with that.
It just sort of supports the need that we have in this community, you know,
Right.
with the Hope Clinic and with the presentation today from Texas Children's Hospital.
Absolutely.
It's very, very obvious that there are a lot of deserts in Aldine, you know, not only food desert, but there is absolutely a medical support need. Because in many cases, it's a school nurse who not only supports the students, but that quite often the parent will come right behind and say, oh, by the way, I've got this and that. And the school nurse is the one that is the medical voice for oftentimes the whole family.
Absolutely.
So it's just one of those things that, you know, in our community is highly needed.
Yeah.
And so I just wanted to pass that along because it was shared and it was very poignant and she was very dedicated still, but it was very obvious from her voice that this structural need of support really, you know, is not there yet, and that she feels that that is part of the reason that we do not retain the nurses.
Yeah.
I know when I was first hired and was coming in, I think there was a shortage, Dr. Shopper, there were like 15 or 20 nurses. And I was like, I'd never seen that in any district. And so there's something we've been working on restructuring and setting those different expectations up and making sure that the nurses have a clear voice and making sure we have the leadership in that whole the department to hold them together because they respond to leadership too.
Right.
Nurses, I mean, they're trained to respond to leadership.
So I've been getting feedback from the nurses, and in the direction that we're headed, already they feel more supported because we are meeting, we are talking, addressing what their concerns are.
And we'll continue to work and
Well, she may know this, that's right. They may be able to get you the name or the school that nurse is at, so that maybe she can be included in the program development or the support.
She was good.
Absolutely.
Are there any other comments or questions regarding our monthly human resources personnel report? Okay, so I could go on to the second information item, which is our monthly vacancy list. That item starts on page 66. And then the vacancy list for teachers is on pages 68 through 70, and for paraprofessionals 71 through 74. Since last month, or as of October 9th, we currently have 112 teacher vacancies and 99 paraprofessional vacancies. Are there any questions regarding our vacancy list? Okay, so I'll go on to our third board item, which is our monthly personnel assignments and recommendations. That board item starts on page 75. And since last month, we have recommended and assigned 46 employees, and their names and current or campus and position are listed there. Are there any questions regarding our monthly personnel assignments?
No questions.
Okay, so our fourth board item is our monthly approved staff assignments. And so tomorrow evening, you'll be introduced to 5 of our new staff assignments, including Mr. Bustillo's, our new Chief Transformation Officer will be one of them. That actually item is found on page 309. I'm sorry, it was an addendum. We added a person since we initially uploaded it. So that board item is on page 309. Is there any questions regarding any of those 5 staff assignments? Okay, and then the last information item is found on page 80. That's our career and technical education teaching permits. And so this year, for the 2019-2020 school year, we have 9 teachers through the District of Innovation law that we have assigned permits to. They're not they're not certified teachers, but due to the need and what they teach, we have assigned them a teaching permit, and those 9 individuals are listed by their campus and the content that they are teaching and their respective qualifications, which are all because of their professional work experience and their formal training and education.
Over here on the MacArthur High School Auto Mechanics, is the gentleman there retiring?
He had, yes, he had, there's one retiring, and Ms. Peterson asked if we could fill this position during peak hiring season because it'd be difficult to find someone. And so there's currently 2 teachers because the current teacher, I believe next month is when he's exiting.
I was thinking about Doug Stockmeyer. Is he still there? Doug Stockmeyer?
Retired last year. Yeah,
Retired?
this
Okay.
summer. Or this summer, that's right.
Are there any questions regarding these 9 individuals?
I do. I have a question about the help position. So that teacher doesn't need a certification right now?
You're referring to the one at Eisenhower? No, through the District of Innovation and the health that they're teaching, we're able to give them a permit.
As long as they're non-core.
Not math, science, reading. So-
No questions there.
All right, that concludes the HR agenda for this month.
Okay, thank you, sir. Dr. Tamika Alfred Stevens,
Yes, sir.
you have a
President.
financial report for us tonight?
Yes, sir. I'm sorry, I'm having a technical difficulty. Good evening again, everyone. President Meade, Dr. Goffney, Dr. Chopper, members of the board. My agenda begins on page 82. And the first item we are requesting your approval of is the standard accounts payable and payroll registry for those items that have been paid out already. Then moving down to the approval of the bids for this month. Items A through J are our standard monthly bid items that we request for you all to approve each month. Also for bids, items H through J are our athletic bids for this month as we are preparing for our spring sports. And then also for bids K and L, we have 2 items from our operations departments, one from transportation, oil and lubricants, and glass products from our maintenance department. Also for this month's bids, letter M and N, we are requesting that the board rescind the bid approval for these 2 products or these 2 vendors. They have notified us that they are unable to fill the orders as requested in the original bid that was brought forth to the board in July. So we are resending the bid to Pasco. We're requesting approval to resend to Pasco because they are unable to fill under certain product guidelines that we were requesting. They have specifications that we are unable to, or stipulations, I should say, that were not in our original bid agreement. And then for glass and glass products, the vendor has, I'm sorry, not for glass and glass products, for uniform shirts, item N, FIDO has notified us that they are unable to provide the products as they had identified initially.
Will you go back to the second
The
bid?
second one.
Or-
Yes, so we're requesting to resend these 2, and then the second lowest bid is the one we are requesting approval of at this time. Then item O, we have our bid contract renewals for this month. Are there any questions on any of the bid items?
No questions.
Thank you.
Also on this month's consent agenda, we are requesting approval of this month's standard over 50K items. Are there any questions about that? I'm sorry, that's on page 182.
No questions.
And then we have this month's budget amendment, which is on page 185, where we are requesting to reallocate funds across multiple functions. Are there any questions about this month's budget amendment? If there are no questions, on page 187, we have our monthly tax office refunds. There are only a few there, as you can see, where the taxpayer has overpaid us and has requested a refund for the overpayment amount. Also on the agenda on page 188, I am requesting approval for 2 interlocal agreements, both for Harris County, one for our 21st Century Grant Program that is in year 4, which is with Drew Academy, and also our our CASE Partnership Program, which is at Raymond Academy. Both of these programs support after-school tutorials and enrichments and provide opportunities for our kids to receive extended learning opportunities beyond the regular school day and into the summer.
So those are exclusive to those 2 schools and they're in that cycle. So none of the other schools are eligible.
That is correct, because they're in that cycle. So this is year 4 for Drew, and I believe year 3 for Raymond, if I'm not mistaken. Also on this month's consent agenda, is the Head Start continuation funding. As you all know, the district has had a partnership with Avance for a number of years as a delegate agency to have our Head Start program at 4 of our campuses. So this is the continuation funding. As you can see there's information about the program and the 540 kids that are being serviced through the Head Start program at those multiple campuses. So we're requesting approval to continue that partnership. Are there any questions about any of those items?
No questions.
If there are no questions, finally, I have for information items, my standard reports, but I'd like to bring attention to page 267, if you'll go there. As you all know, House Bill 3 changed some of the guidelines for our FIRST reporting, and FIRST is the Financial Integrity Rating System of Texas. So until those final guidelines are released, we are still operating under the existing guidelines with our FIRST ratings. And one of those guidelines is that I have to make sure that the board is aware of the impact of using prior year property values and the funding lag that could occur as a result of using prior year property values to determine what our projected budget will be for the next year. Well, as a result of House Bill 3, we are no longer using prior year property values. We're now using current year property values. However, the FIRST rating system has not been updated to reflect that. So just to give you a bird's eye view, if we were still using prior year values, if you look on page 268, you'll see that for the tax year 2017, the district's taxable property value was $19.1 billion, and our state aid was just over $320 million. In tax year 2018, our property value went up to 19.8 million. Do y'all see that?
Mm-hmm.
And our state aid did what? It went down, because when your property value goes up, your state aid goes down. But for tax year 2019, House Bill 3 has changed the guidelines. Mm-hmm. So the property value at this time is 21.3 billion. That's our taxable value this year. So that's just over a 7% increase for us. But our state aid is about $396 million. So we're not comparing apples and apples anymore. So 2019 will be a new baseline year for us, because we're looking at current year values to project our tax collections as compared to prior year values. Mm-hmm. So one of the requirements of FIRST is to make sure you have that discussion with the board. So I'm bringing that information to you, but please know that this information is going to change as the new guidelines and rulemaking continues to trickle down from the impact of House Bill 3. And we have received our preliminary ratings for first, and the district remains an A superior rating. And we anticipate that we will receive our final rating here any day now. And then in November, I will do a formal presentation as required by first to go over each of the indicators and show you how the district scored on each of those indicators. So we anticipate doing that next month, in addition to closing out the 18-19 financials, 18-19 school year financials. So our auditors, Whitley Penn, will be here alongside me to do a presentation of our 18-19 financials so that you will see how we fared. And I'll also share additional information about where we are from a revenue standpoint and a budget standpoint. Are there any questions about any of this information?
Is there a possibility if that number changes, the 21,322, that our state aid will change? And if they've already given us the money, will they take it back?
No, not for this year. So once the allocation is given out, or you're notified that that's your allocation, that's set for the year. But what will happen in projecting and planning for the following year, that's when the adjustments will be made.
I was at HCAD last week.
Yes, sir.
And there was discussion about HCAD being able to certify estimated values instead of certifying actual values. Have we figured out how that's going to affect us?
Well, no, we have not figured that out because, again, we have to wait until we receive that data from HCAD before we can determine what our projected values will be. I anticipate that as the implications of using current year values still come down the pipeline, that may be a recommendation that's taken into strong consideration, given we will not have final current values in time for budget planning. So that could be one of the recommendations that's brought forth, to have some sort of estimate. Or I've also heard Mr. Shanklin, they may look at a 3-year average until we get through this baseline year to see how each district's fare as it relates to using current year values as compared to prior year values. So I still think there are going to be many unintended consequences in understanding this requirement that's now in place. But remember, that was a lot of the pushback on using current year values was not having all of the information, or the agencies or the Harris County, the appraisal district, not having enough time to get all the data to conduct all the assessments to provide that information to entities in a timely manner. So we're waiting to see what the guidance is going to be as well. So any information you continue to get, please continue to share it with us. Thank you. Are there any other questions? If there are no questions, that concludes my agenda.
Okay. Leah, you ready?
Mr. Mead, can you hear me?
I can hear you good.
All right. It's a good thing to be back. I think I forgot what these days felt like, but I didn't forget about staying up late. I appreciate all your thoughts, prayers, support. Baby Alden is doing well. He's at home, and I've already received a report. He's waiting on me to come home. So we'll get to it. My agenda begins on page 220. And today is, this month is pretty simple. We've gone over the calendar of events for several months. And although we print this, we all know that every week when we send out the weekly board communication. So did I 270, I wrote 270, but 270, I apologize. We do send this out. We try to come up with something, but every week we do send out a updated list in the board communication report. So if you don't mind, I'd prefer if you looked at that for what is happening. We try to do this so you have an idea of what's coming up. I noticed immediately that on November 7th, we are missing Dr. Goffney presenting to the Acres Home board, Acres Home monthly chamber meeting. So that's not there, but you guys are all have already been invited and have shared if you will attend or not. As you know, Friday is the AEF annual golf tournament, and on Sunday we're celebrating a special day at Avalos P-Tech School. The dedication ceremony begins at 3. However, you've all been invited to a special reception that starts at 2. And then you'll see that the Partners of Excellence, which is when we connect with our clergy in the area, will be on November 18th, and the Business Advisory is on the 19th. I believe several of you have attended those. It's just our opportunity to really engage with our community partners and give them an update. This month will be our first meeting for this school year, so we'll have an opportunity to share a high-level overview of the strategic plan, and Dr. Goffney can go into detail of where we are right now. I believe that's the same conversation that she'll have with the Acres Home Chamber. This year really will be spent sharing where the district strategic plan is and how what we do every single day, the initiatives and the goals, how they align with the overall plan. On the 10th of December, I just want to put a little note there. Dr. Goffney, I mentioned, talked a long time ago, she may not even remember this, about finding a way to really celebrate and engage the namesakes of our schools. And so we have tentatively on here having a namesake luncheon. So over the summer, I was able to use one of our student interns to really work on finding contact lists. If you know any of the namesakes, have their contact information. We do keep a rolling list, but having that information would be appreciated, and I can share further once we get a little closer with planning. The next thing I just want to share is the Communications Board report. These are just all the stories that were written. Many of them you've read, you've seen. One I really want to point out is celebrating Hispanic Heritage Month. One of our strategic priorities is building stronger communication and outreach efforts, and it's also engaging and making sure our community feels celebrated and appreciated, every member of our community. So we wanted to make a special point of doing something to celebrate every place, opportunity where we could. So we talked about Hispanic Heritage Month, but we also will talk about Asian Awareness Month. We'll also talk about National Principals Month, celebrating our custodians. So it's just not that, but I do know that this one was a big deal because Dr. Goffney wanted to brag to me about what I missed. And she told me that I missed the mariachis coming in and dancing in the streets, in the hallway, and those things. And so from all the pictures I saw, it was really a great opportunity for our employees in this building to really engage with each other. I saw Dr. Offer Stevens with a little flower in her head, really engage and learn. Oh, I'm sorry, I just saw the flower. I just focused in on the flower.
You didn't,
but really engaged.
Point of order.
Oh, yes,
you
ma'am.
didn't know that Javier started the whole thing because Javier was going to celebrate in HR and not include us.
Oh, wow.
He didn't include us.
It's okay.
And so I went to the school's office and then it just spread like.
It did. And speaking of wildfire, if you look across our Twitter page, we use the hashtag, and you can see that the celebration just wasn't here, but campuses all across the district were really finding ways to celebrate. And I've seen some beautiful photos of students and parents and community members really coming up with a way to celebrate some great things happening in our district, as well as Hispanic Heritage Month.
Leah, can I
Yes,
ask
sir.
one question?
Mhm.
I understand that Twitter doesn't do anything in Spanish.
Oh, yes, we do.
Unless they write it in
We write it in Spanish.
We do.
If you
Unless
write
we
it
write
in
in Spanish.
Spanish,
The important stuff we always do in both, and all of it is important.
So yes, so Twitter doesn't automatically do it in Spanish. There's no translation, but there is a button you can push for translation. But what we've come to recognize is that it's not something you want to rely on.
Yeah.
And so I want to make you aware we have one translator in our district who is the district's translator. She works in our department. We work hard to translate as many things as we can. When we launched a new website, we created a mirror image of the website. Here's what happens though. If it took 5 years to compile all the information on the website, you can't translate that overnight. Yeah. So when the day she's not doing projects that are immediate, she's working on translating the mirror site, right? But as Dr. Goffney alluded to, the things that we know are high priority, high need, really need to be focused on, those are immediately translated into Spanish. Okay. So I'll give you an example. We're not having school because of weather. right? We would do that in English and Spanish immediately. Tomorrow, school is closed because it's a district holiday. We would immediately translate that in Spanish. I tell you right now and recognize there is a need and we have a gap there. There's a need and a
Muy
gap.
poquito.
See, there's a need in the gap to increase that. But you know, with what we have right now, we do what we can. We do get support from the schools and other departments where they are able to translate their information, and then we try to either review it or give feedback. But we know that with a large population of with students and families that identify as Hispanic, we don't know that they only speak Spanish, but we can assume that may be the preferred language, that may be the native language. So we try to do our best to get the information out in both languages.
Just want to be sure we're fair.
And I'll also say that we talk about Spanish, but we also need to make sure we acknowledge Vietnamese because that's a language that a large population in our district.
Do we have a translator for that?
We do not, Mr. Mead. With your salary, we can figure out you can donate to that.
Again?
But we do recognize we also just when I was out on leave, I did talk to her, well, in passing, I'll say that. Talk to Dr. Alfred Stevens saying, can we engage with an external translation company for when there's large items, information that we can't do immediately? Absolutely. Can we do that? We did do that with the strategic plan. We sent it out. Actually, no, she did that. Elda did translate the strategic plan, but there are companies that we can send out and say, here's our preferred words. Here's, our style guide. Can you translate this for us? So we're looking into doing that because the need is continuing to grow and you just can't get it done with just one person. We do. We'll have them on retainer so we can reach out and say, we need these done, and they'll turn around immediately.
And I think you raised such a good point. I'm sorry.
No, I just want to echo exactly what Mr. Mead said. The need is there. It's evident that the need is there, particularly when you go into social media and the tendency of most of the people that post in any one of those is in English, and so you have a gap.
Yeah,
I think you identified it.
Yeah, we actually talked about that. It shouldn't always be English translated to Spanish. I think you have to think, okay, how am I communicating this to a different population, whether that's Spanish or sometimes it's just class, age, you write the way you speak, whichever is comfortable for you, but you have to remember you need to write to the audience. And so we have to make adjustments in that area. We also know that there's a gap, but we have to do the best we can though. Glad you pointed that out. I also want to keep moving a little bit and talk about Principals Month. This is the month of celebrating our school leaders and the principals. There's been some celebrations going throughout the month. It's not over. And so we'll continue to make sure we highlight the work of our principals and really celebrate them. I learned it was Bosses Week, not just Bosses Day. I learned that on Twitter, Mr. Mead. So there's also an opportunity to celebrate our district department head and leaders and those who consider themselves bosses or supervisors. Before I turn the floor over to Abel, I just want to make mention of a few more things. One is that we said go Stros. Dr. Goffney graciously allows district employees to wear Astros gear on the days we're competing in the World Series. So you can wear your Astros tie tomorrow, your hat. Here's the thing. It sounds like something that's very easy to do, but what we found is that our employees are really excited about it, feel connected, engaged, and heard. And so I think Dr. Goffney said it best. Jeans is free. Jeans are free. So figuring out a way to highlight and celebrate our employees is an easy way and helps them feel engaged.
So you will not dock the board if we wear Astros outfits?
I mean, it's at your pleasure, sir.
You can wear your
Okay. I gotta buy some.
You don't.
No.
You gotta get it.
Oh, well, you gotta go. Okay,
Just wear blue and orange.
Under the media relations report, as you know, during we're a month behind. So we would really focus in on the things that happened during Tropical Storm Imelda. We had quite a few media inquiries, including lots of questions, highlights, posts about our student Jaden Payne. And so, as well as how our bus drivers responded, how our teachers responded, how our families responded. And so during tomorrow night's board meeting, we're going to take time to honor the transportation department. I remember correctly, I think Jill mentioned she's bringing about 70 bus drivers just to be acknowledged. I don't think they're going to stay. I think they're going to come in, be acknowledged, and leave. And so, you know, it's really an opportunity. And then I know that the police department is bringing between 10 and 15 police officers. And so, Mr. Mead, if during tomorrow night, if you don't mind, I'd ask the board to come down and maybe take a picture with those employees, just as another appreciation for the hard work that they did on such a day that could have been, could have turned out a different way.
We'd love to do that.
Football players gonna be here tomorrow.
And then also, Jaden will be, we are going to celebrate Jaden. So he's been celebrated everywhere else, but Aldine will get to celebrate him. And again, following suit, I'd appreciate it. Or wonder if you guys would step down.
Number 30.
Is that his number?
That's his number.
No, number 30. Number 30. And then the one more recognition will be for our trustee, Ms. Bourgeois, for her years of service. So there'll be a special point in the evening tomorrow where we'll celebrate her dedication and support of Aldine ISD. All right. If no other questions, if you have any questions, Mr. Mead,
Any questions,
Board?
board? No questions.
then I'd like to turn the floor over to Abel to share what he has this month.
Mr. Mead, Dr. Goffin, Dr. Chapman, members of the board. I celebrate Hispanic Heritage Day, Hispanic Heritage Month every day, so I'm still celebrating. It was a great event, actually. It was a great turnout.
You didn't dance. You celebrated, but you didn't dance.
I didn't dance, no. It wasn't appropriate to dance. Not my dancing was not appropriate. Let's just say that. Leave it at that. But my agenda begins on page 280. Let me stick to the agenda. For information, I wanted to provide you with a sample ballot. So on page 282, you will see that sample ballot for our district, the races that will occur in our district. This is how they will look when you go up to the poll. Very simple as compared to some of the other stuff that will be on the ballot. Also, for you to review, as you know, twice a year we hold voter registration drives at our high schools. This year we held it in the week of on September the 15th. We had to reschedule one of the events and postpone another one because of the tropical storm or the storm. But we did have 321 total students registered on those events. So we're proud of our efforts. We continue to, I think we're close to 1,500 over the last 5 years that we've registered students. It keeps getting better, and we just hope that they're taking advantage and that they're voting. Any questions on those two items? If no questions, then I'd like to call your attention. Well, actually, let me make a quick announcement regarding the election. On election day, we'll have an election watch event here. So you're more than welcome to visit or to join us. We're just basically gonna have the computer screens on and we'll be updating results as they occur. So you're welcome to join us sometime after 7. Basically, it's when the polls close that the numbers will start coming in. They'll release early mail ballots first, and then the early vote, and then the election day votes. So again, you're welcome to join us. You'll get more information on that event later on. Next, on page 287, you have a report from the Aldine Education Foundation. Foundation wanted to report some of its updates that it has gone. We have been focusing on trying to increase the number of donors. AEF board members may and staff meet over 19 campus and central and department visits this past fall. And we have 3,150 donors. Of that, $123,000 have been pledged to AEF, and then another 69,000 to the Lone Star Scholarship Fund. So again, they're doing an incredible job in not just raising money, but raising the number of donors that are contributing to our scholarship fund. So again, they're doing a great job, and we just want to make sure that you know the most current information out there from the AEF. Are there any questions? If not, then that concludes my agenda.
Okay, thanks, Abel.
Mr. Mead, I apologize. I had one more thing. I missed this. Tonight, although tomorrow we are celebrating Ms. Bourgeois, tonight, before we go, we've ELT, Executive Leadership Team, would also just like to have a little bit of cake and punch, and just make it special, a little more laid back before tomorrow's formal recognition.
Can you tell them why we're having this celebration?
You want to?
No, you.
Well, Ms. Bourgeois, you're not returning, are you?
Not.
So Ms. Bourgeois is not returning to the board.
Not to seek re-election.
So we'd like to celebrate her service tonight.
After our meeting in the back. Okay. Mr. Wood,
That does conclude my
are
agenda.
you ready?
I am ready, Mr. President. Board members, Dr. Goffney, my agenda is listed at page 288. And at page 290 and 293, I have two routine items. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer those right now. If not, if you would go with me to page 313, and I'm sure that you have all by now memorized this agenda item because this is yet the third month that it has been presented. However, we have finalized the lease agreement according to the terms and guidance and input and feedback that we have received from the board for a few months now. So I'd just like to point out a few things. If you didn't get a chance to review the lease, on page 317, you will see that it has a renewal paragraph that says either party may renew the term for another 10-year term, provided we give 12 months notice. If you recall, before the language was that it would be renewed after 5 years. And so now, if either party, that's either the district or the city, can ask for renewal 12 months prior. So you would have to rule on that renewal, yes or no, at that time. So if the city wants to come back and they want to renew for another 10 years, that will come to this board for approval. If you notice, it has to go to the board and to city council.
Does it, what if they don't come back 12 months ahead of time and ask for a renewal?
Then it will expire. The lease will expire. All right?
And if we don't go to them, then it'll be an automatically 10 month, 10.
No, nothing is automatic. Nothing's automatic. And it has to be approved by both our board and by the city council.
Go over one thing for me. Go over the utilities. I'm still not sure why we're paying $78,000 or an estimate there for the utilities.
All right, if we go,
Is that after we sign the lease? There was something about that we discussed last time because they couldn't get it all together in time that we would pay for the utilities for a year for about an average of $78,000.
it was, if you go to page 319, it is paragraph 5.2.1. So the commencement date is where we start And right now, Mr. Mead, we are paying the utilities. So we will continue to pay those utilities for up to 12 months or the occupancy date when they get their certificate to move in. So in between that time, there will be construction. But if we weren't leasing the building to the city, we would be paying up to $75,000 for those utilities over a 12-month period. So what we did, we went through all the utilities, we put together charts, we looked at the last 2 years, and we came up with the average of what we think we'd be paying in the next 12 months. So we would pay a maximum of $75,000 for that 12-month period. And after the 12-month period, or if the utilities run over that, we will be invoicing the city to get the monies over the $75,000, and we will stop after 12 months after commencement of the lease. So the lease commences after the city council signs off on it.
Because I'm thinking that with all the construction going on, they're gonna be using a lot more air conditioning, and the bills are probably gonna go up higher than $75,000. So you'll cut us off at 75. It goes over that, they will pay it.
Correct. We'll invoice them for the amount
Is that
that goes over.
Is that in the,
Yes, that's the last sentence. Tenant shall be responsible for all other operating expenses, including utility expenses and ground utensils above $75,000.
And the invoices for how many days? 45, 30?
We usually expect payment on our invoices, with 30 days within that's our usual.
Yes, net 30.
Yes.
Do you know when they expect to begin working there?
They are hopeful for January. Don't put that in stone or cement or anything. They still have to get this through the city council. And you know, there's an election next month, and so it may not go to the council until December or maybe January.
but once we sign that contract, they're just going to get 1 year from the date we sign that contract of the $75,000.
Correct.
On date of signing, not when they move in there.
No, sir.
Okay.
All right, and then the last change I want to direct your attention to is on page 331, I wrote down, at paragraph 14.1.
31.
All right, at paragraph 14.1, here's option to purchase. It really should say purchase or sale. Either party may initiate discussion to purchase or sell all or portion of the leased premises during the lease term. So if that is the case, we have to give 6 months, 180 days notice to either party about the desire to either purchase or sell. And understand, this doesn't mean that a district is saying, we're gonna sell the property. It doesn't say we're going, you can buy the property. It doesn't say that at all. It just says, at some point, if either party desires that, they will approach the other party 6 months from the time that they want to make the purchase or to sell. So it's flexible for both the district and the city. Any questions about that? Okay. All right. So my next agenda item, if you would go to page 343 in the addendum. This is an item that I'm sure we all have expected would come. It's the resolution for the storm pay for Imelda This one is a little different in that the superintendent is requesting approval to pay on that Thursday when we had the storm. Everybody had come to work. If you had not come to work, then you use whatever leave that you had requested to use on that day. But if you stayed afterwards, and the time that we're using in the resolution is 5 p.m. So those who were asked to work or come back to work, if they were asked to stay or come back to work, will receive extra compensation for that period of time. And then on the next day, it's our usual, the district was closed, but we have it in our policy now that the board can approve that the individuals, all employees be paid as if they came to work on that day. So also in the past, we have allowed employees, upon your approval, to use accumulated sick leave that they had to attend to issues that they had at home or with their cars that was associated with the storm. So we've had requests for various reimbursements, but this is a great compromise that the district is not able to reimburse. We had a couple of schools where cars were flooded. Well, the district, that will be a gift of funds if we help them to replace their car or to get it repaired. But we will allow them time off to go and take care of that. And some individuals have flooding in their homes. They may not have personal leave or vacation day or comp time accumulated enough to cover that. So we're asking the board to allow them to use their sick time. So what you would be doing is waiving the requirement that you be sick to take your sick time. You would allow them to use it. You would allow them to use that time to take care of their needs. Yes.
Clarification for Thursday. It's only for those individuals who were asked to remain, not if they chose to remain because they couldn't get home.
The ones who worked.
Who worked, yes, because what we're going to be able to discern the individuals who worked. The last time each department and each campus used a form to determine who worked and how long they worked and so forth.
Some of them may not have been able to get home, and so they were more willing to stay and work, but it was all hands on deck.
Right.
So almost 11 o'clock.
I don't think there was many sitting around twiddling their thumbs. Pretty much working on keeping the kids safe and making
Riding
sure.
buses.
That's right. Getting on the bus.
Question may come up.
Yes, ma'am.
Sure.
I think we ought to compliment all of those teachers that stayed over to stay with those kids.
Absolutely, we will.
Are they coming to the board?
We have thanked them, and Imelda was my first Houston flooding experience, and let me tell you, there was nothing that could have prepared us to make any other decision than this decision that was made. We were all on a call at 3 a.m., including Dr. Davis. I had asked him to be on the call as well, and we did it a couple of days straight. And the meteorologist said that we were going to be on the clean side, that it wasn't going to hit. And so the next day, same thing. And so at 9:30 a.m. is when they said, we need you to take cover at turn. And so the meteorologist couldn't get it. It was just one of those things that, even hindsight, there was nothing. We've had meetings and think tanks and said, okay, what would have signaled us to make a different decision? And we had no information in which to make a different decision. So
that was an issue that also came up at the forum. Several. And the question was asked of the candidates, why did we have school? So, they really didn't have the right information.
Right.
And Aldine wasn't the only school that had school.
Right.
And like I told the parents, there were parents who left home that day going to work not knowing, because the media wasn't saying it was going to hit us. And so Houston went to school. I mean, everybody went to school. It was just the ones that they said it was going to hit, beginning with Humble, New Caney, and down 59, and then of course Southeast Texas. But everybody, all of us went to school because that's the information that we had at the time. So
The only other, and the other misconception was that the board, the community thinks that the board is the one who makes the decision. And I had to share with them that it's not us, it's superintendent.
it all falls on the superintendent, and of course we owned it, and it's easy. It is what it is. But what I'm thankful for is, I'm telling you, we had amazing staff. Aldine staff came together and made sure that our kids were safe and took care of all of our kids, and then worked the weekends to make sure that the campuses were put back together and so on and so forth. So it wasn't an idea of, oh, we have to go to school because we're going to lose money. It cost us more money to have school. So it wasn't about money. It was not about the minutes or so on and so forth, because we have enough minutes. So it's not like we're going to have to make it up. We didn't have good information to make any other decision than the decision that was made, just like all the other schools in Harris County who had school that day. And most schools had school.
The best decision with the information that you had.
Yeah. And but again, very thankful for the people, for the teams, and we've done a lot of celebrating. And what I'm also thankful for at DIC, and when we've talked about it with teachers and staff, everyone knew. I mean, the media wasn't saying don't go to school, and we went to school. It wasn't like that at all. And so, but very blessed to work with a hardworking group of people. I mean, our transportation staff, nobody complained. They were out until 11:30, and there were no complaints. And our teachers, our school assistant soups, all these people in this room, everybody was working until the last kid made it home. So I'm proud of that. But I do want a high water vehicle, though, since we're going to be. People ask, what can we do? What do we need?
I'll drive it.
No. We do want a high water vehicle. And so we have a couple of
Probably
people.
more than
looking-
one.
But I appreciate y'all's support. Not one time have you guys asked, why did you have school? I think you were watching the news as well.
I knew. I was fixing to go to meet you guys, and I couldn't get out of my house.
And I know a lot of leaders do different things. It just is what it is. I wasn't going to put out an email making excuses or put out a note to the community making excuses. Communication, it just is what it is. And we dealt with it. I'm so thankful for Shalia, who came out of, I can't say that. Never mind. She didn't work at all. She was babysitting her baby.
Dr. Goffin, you mentioned that we didn't put out a message to the community. In the media calls that came the day after, many of them wanted us to issue a statement like Houston did.
Blaming the meteorologist or blaming.
But as Dr. Goffney mentioned, the decision is up to each individual school, and on the call and anybody else, they can only give you the information they have. I mean, they're not going to be responsible for us having school or not. It's still up to the superintendent. And so the media is not always aware of that. So sometimes it's a great opportunity to educate them on what and how the decisions are made. And I think the good news is that the superintendent was available to have conversations with media outlets and talk through that.
I was actually part of the media. The media even said the superintendents couldn't have made this decision. You know, they made the best decision they had because they didn't know, the meteorologists didn't know it was going to turn.
Anything else, Kate?
I have one more item. It's together with my colleague, Dr. Villarreal. It's on page 350. And it regards our pay increases. As you know, this last legislative session resulted in significant pay increases for our teachers and for all the employees. And what we discovered is that our board policy really only addressed teachers because they're covered by INVEST, and the nomenclature that we used were the terms used in INVEST. So we have added a section for all other employees who are in a system other than the INVEST system. So we have our principal evaluation, we have the district level administrators and other staff who are also included. So that if I'll yield the floor to Dr. Villarreal if he has additional comments. I'm sure he will.
Just
we, per conversations in executive session, we heard you and went back and looked at board policy and wanted to make sure that it was very clear that the policy should address not only teachers, but everybody in the district. And so principals, assistant principals, program directors, chiefs, assistant superintendents would all abide by the same policy regarding salary increases and needing to maintain a certain level on their formal evaluation each year.
Am I not correct that some of them that didn't meet the evaluation did not get the raise, right?
Those were for teachers only.
Correct.
Correct.
And there was, remember, there was a question that came, what about principals? What about program directors or others? And we didn't have a mechanism or a policy to prevent them from getting the raise. And so this is a result of that.
Are we going to do something like that?
That's what this is right here. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. We're
Yes, sir.
proposing to revise the board policy so that it addresses all district employees.
Right. And we're asking to waive first reading and for it to be approved immediately upon your approval at the board meeting on tomorrow.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
This is just to educate us, because I haven't seen this very often. Redemptions
Redemptions on the,
tax.
oh, this is
That
a,
doesn't happen very often.
it
after a
doesn't.
tax sale.
It doesn't. That's a piece of property that we sold on a resale and the taxpayer has now paid the taxes and they're getting the property back.
There's a big penalty to that.
Yeah, interesting.
Well,
I mean,
it is.
You don't see it.
They really wanted it. Yes. Any other questions?
Board, any questions?
I have one item in executive session, and that concludes my agenda.
Okay, then we will adjourn into executive session under section 551071, consultation with attorney, section 551074, personnel matters, section 551072, real estate, section 551076, security personnel or devices, and section 551082, student disciplinary. It is now 9:16.